Hello and welcome to episode 59 of The Crate and Crowbar. It's the 9th of September, I'm Tom Francis, and with me here today is special guest, Jack.
Hi there, I'm Jack De Quidt.
And Jack worked on Castles in the Sky with, who's your collaborator on that?
Dan Pearce, who is on Twitter at GameDesignDan.
Putting him above yourself there.
Yeah.
We'll do your handle at the end.
Goes, yeah.
And...
Tom C, yeah.
And...
Graham Smith.
Oh. Your voice didn't go up in pitch. It was...
I thought you were just disappointed. Oh
shit,
I'm disappointed by me as well. It's all downhill.
We don't have any major news, but I wanted to talk about Firewatch in terms of a thing that is out there that we haven't played and thus is not eligible for the we're playing bit.
Yeah, we will judge it nonetheless.
Yeah, we will. We'll give it a score at the end of this podcast.
As is our want.
It looks good.
I like the colours.
There's a trailer and there's a playthrough, and the playthrough they did at PAX, the playthrough shows way more than the trailer. And from the trailer itself, I wasn't really sold. Obviously, it looks absolutely beautiful, which I kind of knew from the screenshots and stuff. Well, the sort of the brief GIFs and stuff they're showing. But it's really unclear from the trailer, what do you actually do? What kind of game is it? Are you literally just listening to a story and you follow along a path and make the story progress? Or there's some bits with throwing a rope around a tree and climbing up? Is that a completely scripted thing? Or do you actually get to choose where you do that and that kind of thing? And so then there's a playthrough that I think I recommend watching the stream from PAX in which the audio is messed up so that you can't hear what people are saying in the game. You can hear the developer's commentary fine, which gets you basically the important information about what the kind of game it is. And, when he's walking around, set in the forests of Wyoming, you are a fire lookout and you are... we actually don't know anything about what happens really, except that that's your job and that does not end up being the game. You're not actually looking out for fires. Something else happens.
A mystery or something.
A mysterious thing happens, but we don't know literally nothing about it. Even whether it's, a supernatural mystery or a conventional thing. And when they're just walking around the forest and stuff in the live demo, they're talking about, how open it really is. Can you actually go anywhere? No, you can't. Is the answer to that. But you do get a much better sense of it is a thing where you can sort of decide what to mess around with. It's like Gone Home, you can kind of pick up everything and throw everything around. Right. And in fact, it features a book from Gone Home.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
And most of it, it's pretty clear it's going to be a kind of conversation game, really. It's Jake Rodkin and Sean Vanneman of previously of Telltale Games, who both worked on Walking Dead. And it seems like basically Walking Dead style conversations, but in a first-person exploration game like Gone Home, but set in a forest.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Are these conversations express? I realise that the answer to this question could very easily be watch the goddamn presentation. But are these conversations expressed through a very similar sort of interface as Walking Dead? I'm interested as to how walking around and having Walking Dead conversations.
Yeah, so they thought about that, and that's kind of the central thing in it, is you have this radio that you actually choose when to talk to the only other person in the game, Delilah, I believe. And so it's a little bit like, do you know the heart in Dishonored?
Yeah.
Where you can choose to point at things. I literally forgot to use it after level 1 forever. But
I kind of obsessively pointed it at everything.
That's because the reason I didn't use it was because Dishonored was a stealth action game with loads of weapons to stab people and magic powers to possess them and do terrible things to them. Firewatch has basically nothing except the radio. They're pretty explicit about this. There's no combat at all. You can pick things up and you can talk on the radio and that's it. So hopefully you won't actually forget to use it. But it is, I imagine there's sort of key story things where Delilah talks to you with no, prompting.
Yes.
But also, wherever you are, you can just sort of press a button to use the radio, and then you get a dialogue tree on your screen about what you want to say about what's going on. And I think they said initially that was kind of in response to events and stuff, and then they changed it so that, they added more and more options for that, so that if you're just in a particular location, you'll get some options to talk about that. We didn't really... We might have got to see some of those because I couldn't hear any of the game audio. I don't know if I saw any of those or whether it was critical plot stuff because I literally didn't know anything at all. And the reason I recommend the version with the broken audio, even though there's a perfectly good version out there as well, is that as I was watching it, I realised, this is going to be quite good. At least quite good. Hopefully very good. And so I don't actually want to hear what they're saying. I want to be completely nonplussed. There are lots of laughs from the audience, so I think it's funny.
See, I watched first of all the trailer, and I thought the trailer was really I had the same problems with it that you did, and I really didn't like the dialogue, and it's got this kind of really pretentious tone.
Yeah, the trailer makes it seem super serious.
Yeah, and they're kind of halting dialogue, and they're kind of disagreeing, and it's not just that you seem to just walk through it; it's all canned animations as well. It doesn't look like that's a natural animation they can trigger without it being a cutscene when you walk under a tree and you put your hand on it and move it out of the way and that sort of stuff. So I was really down on it from the trailer.
Assassin's Creed can do that.
The tone when you actually watch the playthrough is completely different. And I don't normally watch playthroughs of things because I don't want the spoilers, and also it's an hour long, which doesn't seem like a great investment.
That's a very long playthrough.
Well, the actual playthrough part is only 15 minutes, and the rest of it is just them answering questions on Twitch, because this is the cleaned up version. But I did watch it, and it's really funny, and it's really funny entirely because of the dialogue and your ability to choose those options, or the fact that you can say nothing at all in response to certain things, and so Delilah reacts based on that.
Because it's like Walking Dead, where you have a sort of timer. You have
Yeah.
time to respond, and if you don't say anything in that time, it assumes you want to say nothing.
Yeah.
I love that because it kind of forces you to be honest in a way. It's kind of your first response, your honest response is what you kind of encouraged to go for there.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting parts of the live stream for me was the moment where he goes onto a beach and they're kind of two kids frolicking out in the lake and splashing around, and he just picks up their radio and kind of throws it in the water, and he says that you could just carry the radio off or do something else. They've thought about it by putting players into those situations and seeing what they do, and then coming up with responses for everything you might be able to do.
Reverse engineering. But...
Yeah, precisely, and then coming up with funny responses and things. So it's not going to be open world, but within those linear environments, it's going to apparently be really responsive.
It feels almost like a jazz punk level of improvisation, in the sense that jazz punk has the capacity for players to just really any way you interact with this.
It rewards you, doesn't
with
it?
these things here, it will reward you in one way or another. And it's interesting to see that level of improvisation being taken away from sort of absurdist comedy and into more actually we're going to try and tell a story here or something.
With the stereo thing, it's playing music and the kids are listening to that, so they are annoyed if you throw it in the water. As soon as you're saying you can pick it up and take it away, I want to pick it up, take it away just far enough that they react to that, and then immediately move back into range. Just immediately try and fuck with the systems.
How many times will the systems allow you to do that?
But no, it seems like the cool things about this game are that it's funny, that it's got a somewhat dynamic narrative, and that you can choose what you're going to say, and that you can interact with so much of the environment in different ways, and the trailer didn't convey any of those details.
So what do you think their motivation was in making that first trailer, other than to show off a lot of orange, which was the impression that I got?
It is stunningly pretty, and the trailer does get that across, but I wonder if maybe they think they'll sell it off the back of the mystery more than anything else, because that obviously was such a huge part of Gone Home, or a lot of these other so-called walking simulators is, people trying to work out what is this thing, what does this thing contain.
Yeah.
It's like the Myst level title.
But I mean, that's sort of been the difference with Firewatch is they've said it is a mystery, so there actually is something mysterious happening. Whereas Gone Home actually wasn't a mystery. It was a thing that seemed like it was going to be that have some surprise in it about something happen. Obviously, I won't say what happens in Gone Home, but ultimately, it's not a horror game.
The realization for me that Gone Home was not so my experience with Gone Home was kind of similar to Tom's realization that Firewatch was probably going to be good, was that I read some very early previews of Gone Home and thought, this sounds like my jam, I'm not going to read any more about this. Which meant that when I was going into it, I sort of had this huge question of what the hell is going on? What's this mystery going on here? And the moment where I realised that wasn't what the game was about was a really pleasurable moment for me. To sort of go oh, hold on a second. This isn't actually the story they're trying to tell at all.
The funny thing with Gone Home is that, because it looks like a horror game, and just has the atmosphere of a horror game, and it intentionally plays to that sometimes. It does little horror tricks on you.
I think it has a couple of
without any
fantastic
real
horror moments.
Without any real jump scares or anything. But I played the first half of it because I was a tester on it, and the second half simply wasn't made at that point, so there's no way to find out the end or anything. You just get a really mysterious, very, very tense, very scary build up to something, and then it ended when you go into the loft. The loft is like just
Holy
sort of
shit.
sealed and just a bit scary.
Yeah.
Or at least, actually, I think in the full game you go to the loft much later, but
okay.
it was pitched as if you were getting into the loft next. But in fact, there's a whole other section of the house to explore. But it was fucking sinister. Like, whatever's in that loft, I'm fucking terrified of it.
Yeah.
And what it made me... Obviously, it's cool that it isn't a horror game, because I think there are fewer good versions of what Gone Home is than there are good horror games. But it also made me realise... God, a horror game in which nothing happens for the entire duration until the final moment. There's
So
a 3 hours,
kind of-
like there's just one scare at the end.
And
It would be so effective.
I realise that we're
like...
that this podcast is like a PC games podcast. Would I be permitted literally like a 250 word entry into a thing that
Did you
isn't
write it?
PC? I didn't write it, but I'm kind of thinking about how long it is.
Yeah, we go on tangents all the time. Don't worry about it.
PT, the playable teaser for Silent Hills, which of course is revealed not to be Silent Hills, has as its kind of one of the central components of its scares, something that I've been thinking about for a long time since playing Gone Home, which is something a friend said to me after playing Gone Home, which was the scariest thing in this game could be if there was somebody else in the house with you. They wouldn't even need to be hostile. Just the discovery of walking into the living room
It's massively multiplayer.
in Arbor Hill, or just walking into the living room in Arbor Hill House and there being somebody in a chair would be this moment of like, holy shit, where did you come from?
They just need to turn their head and you'd be fucking
Right,
shitting yourself.
absolutely. And PT has this amazing structure where you're essentially traversing a looping hallway of initially a very standard home. It's a corridor. It's got paintings on the walls. It's got doors into other rooms in the house. It's got like a kind of a dresser with pictures on it, photographs on it, and a telephone book and a telephone and everything. And everything feels very normal. And as you traverse this looped hallway multiple times, the hallway begins to get increasingly strange. And it's an L-shaped hallway until at one point you go down the long end of the L and you turn the corner and there is a figure standing in the hallway, some distance away from you, lit by a swinging lamp above the stairs. And the first time I played it, it was this amazingly terrifying moment because it felt like the space had been actively invaded. It felt as though this was a space that was set up to not have stuff like this going on in it at all, to be almost a Stanley Parable-esque or a Gone Home-esque. It's going to be a quiet and scary introduction to a spooky mystery in a house. And then I come around this corner and there is a swaying, slightly too tall, like hobble-legged figure standing in the corridor in front of me, not doing anything. And that was an amazing moment that I think what you were talking about Gone Home, having this build-up and then a scare at the end, I think PT sort of vaguely suggests what something like that might possibly be like.
I wonder if it benefits a bit from the fact that we have become accustomed to the idea that games either have people in them or they don't. And if you don't see any people, it's because the developers couldn't make any people. Because they didn't have a 3D modeler to do faces and stuff.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
The fact that you haven't seen any yet means there definitely won't be any at all because they simply couldn't exist.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're able to do that and you just had a lot of restraint,
Yeah.
then you can do that.
There's something great about Watch Dogs multiplayer, just for the ability to invade other people's games and then stalk them. One of the modes is literally to just tail them without them knowing that you're there, and you just look like a regular pedestrian. And that moment when you discover that you've been invaded and someone is following you does kind of pierce some mental bubble that you've had. And obviously you're surrounded by people, but you feel like you're just playing a single player game going around doing missions.
Yeah.
And knowing that one of those pedestrians that's around you is actually another player, another human being that's been watching you, maybe for minutes at that point,
Yeah.
is...
And on the
there's
other end of that
potential
scale,
there for...
there's a real sort of edge of the seat feeling of really quite strategic stealth when you're playing as the tailor. Not in the sense of making clothes, but in the sense of playing as the tailor in this game in Watch Dogs.
Darkest role of all.
It's
The Stalker, not in the sense of exploring a post-apocalyptic terrain.
no,
The tailor just makes iconic caps.
right, yeah, it's great. But no, so acting as the tailor or the stalker has these really weird moments where sometimes you'll be tailing a player that is doing vaguely normal player stuff. They're driving around, they're walking around there, using their fucking profiler device to find out who's going to university or something. Or you meet a player that is just doing utterly bizarre stuff. Like, I had to tail a player that was running increasingly tight circles around some gas station pumps and occasionally threatening nearby pedestrians with a machine gun.
Easy to follow, though, right?
Well, but this was a really interesting stealth challenge because I couldn't behave like the people he was threatening or people who were going like the classic Assassin's Creed confusion loop, like, oh, what's going on here or something. So I had to essentially play a game of round and round the mulberry bush with around these gas station pumps as they were running around. I was kind of like tracking them round the other way. It was a really weird stealth challenge that was very dynamic.
It does make you realise that every player just looks super goofy in these
Yeah.
worlds. Like, when you don't feel like when you're the person controlling the player character, you don't feel goofy. When you see another player doing those movements, they look flipping goofy.
Absolutely.
And like, Watch Dogs has CTOS towers, which are basically the same thing as Far Cry 3's climbable radio masts.
Yeah.
And so if you ever see a player doing that, where they're basically going around rooftops trying to do jumping puzzles and keep falling off and screwing it up and going back around again, and you're just standing there watching this person screw up the same jump over and over again.
That's really cool.
Very odd.
Maybe this is things that aren't supposed to be seen by other humans. In the same way that I don't want someone in my house seeing me make a kind of triple tier egg and cheese sandwich. I also don't want people seeing me kind of trying to do stupid shit in video games.
Yeah, it's weird. It'd be really interesting to, and I mean, to an extent we get this with Twitch, but even then, it's another layer of abstraction, because in Twitch, we are viewing it through the perspective of the person playing. In this Watch Dogs tailoring simulator, we're watching it from we're watching from the outside of the player's body, or outside of the player's camera position.
It's fun watching, when you're watching, like you say, someone else playing on Twitch, although it's the same perspective, sometimes I find I get disproportionately frustrated with them not doing things that I would do in that situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, like, watching someone else, I always have that no matter who they are. And if they're Bananasaurus Rex playing Spelunky, who's the best player in the world, it's like, no, don't do that, come on.
Well, it's the, like, pick up the cup, pick up the goddamn cup. Why haven't you picked up the cup?
And of course, in that case, the difference is he's correct and I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, sometimes I go back and watch old videos of me playing Spelunky. And even then, I'm like, come on, why don't you whip that up?
Yeah, it's
don't
really
do that.
strange. I'll watch old playthroughs that I've been doing, like even like a week ago or something, and I will catch myself, or rather, I will spot things that I wish that I'd spotted at the time. You know, like here's a weird thing that I didn't notice, or here's an interaction that I missed, or something. I don't know. It's. I don't quite know how we got down this route. Firewatch, I suppose.
Short route from Firewatch to watching yourself play Spelunky.
Yeah,
The thing
exactly.
that I like about Firewatch, and to the extent it's an extension of what happened with The Walking Dead, is that it could fix adventure games, basically. And that adventure games, the old school adventure game genre has loads of problems. That, you know, there's lots of pixel hunting, there's lots of kind of bullshit puzzles, there's like real pacing problems with being stuck in the same areas for long periods of time, stilted character conversations. And The Walking Dead fixed that by taking out most of the puzzles, making it about human interaction and about conversation.
Yeah.
And Firewatch has taken that a step further and kind of giving you the place back, giving you the exploration back, but making it responsive enough to allow you to miss things, I think, and to explore an environment and not feel as though, oh, I didn't pick up the spanner, therefore I can't play for another 5 hours. I kind of hope that it plays out like an adventure game, which actually caters to a modern audience.
Something that's been interesting to me about seeing this kind of at least visible dramatic boom in creation of different types of indie games in the last 3 or 4 years has been really heartening to see a kind of erosion of genre. In the sense that it's interesting that you mentioned it as an adventure game. I would not necessarily have thought of it as an adventure game. I guess I'd probably have jokingly called it a walking simulator or something, but even then that doesn't really describe it as a genre.
Walking Dead simulator.
Oh, yeah, it's just a Walking Dead there, Tom. You just described. but no, I think it's probably quite good for the industry that we're starting to see, you know, it doesn't have to be this sort of genre anymore, it doesn't have to be that sort of genre anymore. I'm just plugging my phone in so it doesn't die.
I think there is a very real line between those, like, we call them walking simulators, but there's a line between those and Myst. They're about looking at your environment and finding things. It's about discovery. Like in Gone Home, it's about opening drawers and finding things and piecing things together, which is it's an adventure game, like, at that point, really.
Did you read Joe Goodwin, Harbour Master? He goes back online. He wrote a piece recently about how we should start calling them secret boxes instead, because there's a
heard
Japanese
about this.
thing of people who design these boxes that are very ornate, and they're not a game, there's not a challenge exactly, but you just turn around this box and poke at it and prod at it and find ways in which it opens up and unfolds, and there are things inside it, and it's secret box in the sense of you are exploring the designer's intent in some way. Like, the designer has created something for you. And, like, you speak to Ed Key, who did Proteus. Like, he hates the term walking simulator and much prefers, because he feels like it's a designed experience he's created, and walking by its nature is not designed in that same way. And it's interesting to think of these things in those terms.
Secret
It's something
boxes.
you're exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, walking simulator is really derogatory. I mean, it's what internet commenters say when they think, it's just got walking in it.
And people have tried to reclaim it, which I understand.
I do find it funny.
As a term.
It's a simple joke. It's a very old one, but it still kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. Even though I like those games.
I was talking to William Pugh, one of the designers on the Stanley Parable, a while ago, and we were playing a level of the Stanley Parable together. And he wasn't looking at the screen, and he was narrating what I was playing. You know, like he was like, "Oh, let's see how much of the game I can remember." And at one point, I was walking down a corridor. It's the Stanley Parable. I was walking down a corridor. There was a photocopier in the middle of the corridor, and he was just like, "Dodge the photocopier." You just dodge the photocopier, it's the challenge. And from then on, I've kind of thought of at least the Stanley Parable as a dodge the photocopier genre of the game. But, you know, there's a level of challenge here. It's just adjusting your mouse and keyboard or your controller just slightly, so you manage to get past the photocopier a bit.
I sort of think just discovery game would be quite a good time for a lot of sense. And I feel like that does exclude some things that you would call a walking simulator, but that's a good thing, because I want to know whether it's a game where someone, as you say, has designed some kind of experience, or whether it's like Minecraft with no weapons.
Yeah.
You know, like a completely open-ended thing where it's all simulated and there's nothing to discover necessarily, except just more of more generative stuff.
I think what disappoints me about the walking simulator label is that it's a bit like saying StarCraft 2 is just clicking in it, or that football is just kicking a ball around. And actually, well, okay, you described an aspect of that thing, but the actual mental process that's going on when you're exploring these places is really engaged, and really kind of like opening those drawers and going home is really fucking interesting, because it's constantly giving you little bits of character.
Like a secret inside.
Yeah, exactly.
A crown.
It's a
better
little kind of
sword.
+1 axe in there. Yeah. Well, yeah, just like uncovering the story of like the dad in that is one of the saddest dreams in the game, and like what's actually happening in your mind is you're piecing together a drama. And that's a very active process. It's not like reading a book or watching a film. That's something unique to games that's happening.
And it has that really poignant climax to that story where the guy from Firewatch is stamping on his book.
Saying, I hate this book.
When you think about like the dissolution of genre no longer meaning what it used to, is that because the basic tools of first-person controls and stuff have become so naturalised to us that we no longer call it first-person, because first-person is just so uniform, everyone understands it, we know how to control it. And therefore it diversifies into romantic.
I was reading a while ago about like the invention of comedy as a Greek thing, which was it was really interesting to me to read about sort of like the conventions of a way of performing or of a way of speaking that nowadays we consider so natural as to just be like instinctive. Like comedy is instinctive; it's a thing that just happens. But reading about this and reading about the traditions of comedy in Greek theatre and things, it kind of suggested that like that super wasn't the case. People had to, over a period of time, kind of invent what we consider to be ways of communicating comedy. And that's really interesting to me. And I guess we can kind of see a parallel in like, well, first-person controls are just, it's the way you interact. It's like being a person, even though it super isn't like being a person, because we don't glide carefully through a series of environments.
The funny thing I've discovered is that I was thinking after Gunpoint that I would sometimes see people try and like click on things instead of pressing the use key on the keyboard. And I thought, that's actually just intuitive. Like the mouse should probably do everything. And I started thinking about it. I think, actually, the mouse could have done everything at Gunpoint just with clicks. And it would be different and it would feel different, but you could have a sort of click to move game. And so I sort of had that in mind when doing heat signatures controls, and heat signatures just currently has click to move. You just click where you want to go and you go there, and you use Pathfinder to get there. And when I watch people play it, they always reach for WASD. And it's only when they're flying a spaceship, they understand that it's just a mouse and they don't have any problem with that. And then as soon as they dock and they see a person, they reach for WASD.
See, this is
and
interesting.
so they just have this kind of like inbuilt natural thing of like, oh, I'm a guy, WSD.
Does the thief or the assassin or the bounty hunter not control with WSD? Are they the mouse?
Yeah, click to move again.
That's really interesting to me, because watching the demo earlier today, I just instinctively thought, oh, yeah, I play that with WSD.
Well, funnily enough, some people are already unhappy with the click to move controls without having played it, just from watching the video.
Oh, so like, oh, I do not like this.
WSD, I don't like mouse controls. You haven't played it at all! But I probably will add it, because, why not?
Talking of walking simulators, I've been playing a game called Eidolon recently, which I think is pretty fair to describe as a walking simulator in a very literal sense, in that a lot of aspects of it seem to be riffing off like ideas of orienteering or ideas of large-scale landscape exploration. So it's a walking simulator quite literally in the sense that you're mimicking things that somebody might do when they're hiking or when they're walking or something. And it's a very impressionistic game that mixes survival components from games like, I suppose, Daisy. You need to watch your temperature, you need to watch your hunger level, but it's nowhere near as sort of draconian as Daisy. And environmental exploration components from games like Gone Home. So this vast, like phenomenally vast open landscape is littered with buildings to explore, or spaces, or letters, or diaries, or calendars, or blog posts to pick up. And it's impressionistic in the sense that Proteus is almost impressionistic. Like, there are foxes and wolves and wildcats in the games, and their legs don't animate. They sort of glide through through the forests really interestingly. And the
sounds called Eidolon because they look like sharks.
Yes, and the houses are these weird, interesting geometric constructions. But there's something incredibly powerful about the scale of the place. It's enormous, so it takes you a long time to get from point A to point B. In combination with two other things, in combination with how much care has been placed to making the environments look good, even though they're impressionistic. Like, there is beautiful coloured mist that rolls in the mornings and the evenings, and the draw distance is huge, so you can look out over mountains, and snow falls, and ripples pass across a pond when you're fishing in it. It's gorgeous. And also, all the maps are... your position is not marked on them. So they're often hand-drawn. So you're constantly having to navigate based on what you think you're looking at or what you think you're experiencing. So it's a game which is very easy to get lost in. I guess in more senses than one. And it all comes together to be this incredibly immersive and emotive experience, so that when you do stumble upon a ruined church or something in the middle of the wilderness and find inside it notes from the pastor who's reading to his congregation that week about some terrible event that happened 3 years ago, and you need to work out what's going on. This pastor's crabbed handwriting that you have to uncover feels very, very emotive and very real. It's a very interesting game. I'm enjoying it a lot.
It's interesting that there's stuff like that in a game that is so impressionistic, because it does look like Proteus, doesn't it?
Yeah, it super does look like Proteus.
So, without having played it, my sort of prediction would be that in that situation I would have trouble getting my head around the idea that there's an actual person writing things in that world, because it's so sort of
abstracted.
Yeah.
It's really strange. I think it's helped by the fact that the writing is really solid. A lot of Eidolon's charm is in finding out exactly what the story's about. So I won't say too much, but essentially something has happened a long time ago.
I like those kind of games.
Yeah, something happened. Something's happened. You're entering a world. You just dropped into it. The game begins on a hill. You walk down the hill to a lake. You have in your inventory a sort of an iPad thing called a Lux device that you can click on that tracks a whole bunch of stuff. Some of which is not explained. I still don't know what about 30% of the interface does, because it hasn't been revealed to me yet.
There's no Google Maps, though, I assume.
There is no Google Maps, although I have some suspicion that the Lux device will track digital maps if and when I find them.
Oh, I see.
So if I find a digital map, the Lux device will go, oh, cool, right, I know how this works. One of the first things that you see when you open up your inventory is a paper notebook, and then this Lux device that says, you are really far away from a beacon. go and find a beacon, and that's all it says. And you're like, all right, I suppose so. And there's something very interesting about gradually coming to terms with this world and gradually coming to terms with what these impressionistic icons drawn on the map mean. There's no legend.
Reminds me of a game. I really can't think of the name of it, but unfortunately, it's a horror game. I say unfortunately because it's got monsters in it. But most of the time, essentially, like you've got a disease and you're trying to find the cure for the disease by picking plants and kind of mix them together.
Oh, I know. In Miasmata.
Miasmata, yes, that's it. But a big part of the game is looking at points on building this map that you're exploring the environment that you have no idea about, and you build it by looking at landmarks and triangulating, and you see like sketch marks drawn across your map to where you are, and you're using your environment to actually build this map and find your place inside it, and that's deeply satisfying. Like it's all built a game around that in its own right, and made like exploration and just kind of seeded the story into that without having fucking monsters in it. I
think Eidolon's kind of your thing there. I mean, you don't have to build the map, but you absolutely fucking do have to come to understand this map. I spent a whole play. So one of the things I love about Eidolon, and this is kind of tangential, I don't know, is that it has a notes function where you can just write. You can just type straight into the game and it records it.
I love that.
And I made a decision really early on that is kind of stressful, but I'm glad that I made, which is that I was going to record what I was doing, not in a sort of roleplay sense, like I'm really cold today or something, but more in a sense of like there's a weird light on the mountain over there. I'm going to go and explore it, or I accidentally ate 48 blackberries or something. And I have like 78 pages compiled of almost every single one of my experiences in this game.
Man, it'd be so cool if when you died, that notebook was just populated to everyone else's game
that'd be
worlds,
amazing.
like with your body,
God, that
so anyone
is
can come across
so
it and
good.
find like
that was so good.
It's the cargo commander thing.
Yeah.
The ability to find other people's bodies on the spaceship that they died.
yeah.
Cargo Commander does that?
Yeah,
I've
so
never played enough of it to see that, you see.
Cargo Commander, if listeners don't know, is a game set in space where you're like a junk.
It's got a really good song.
salvage guy.
Salvage, that's the word. Yeah, so you press a button and then it draws in spaceships from around you. They crash into your spaceship. You then go into their spaceships, find things, find aliens.
And it's slide on, so the spaceships are kind of like Splunky levels.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
Splunky levels crash into you, and then you jump into them.
And you've
like
got
it's
a time limit to get through them, find the thing that you're after, kill everything, and then get back to your ship before they get sucked into a black hole, I think. But as part of that, you could find, I think it's like Dark Souls, you can find the corpses, basically, of other players that
That's
have
so
also...
cool.
Because every part of the galaxy has like a name, and that name is the seed, basically, for that galaxy. So you can give it to other players and then go
That's
into the
really
same places.
Like
then.
we had a
It's
PC
really
Gamer
great.
seed, didn't we? Where
Yeah.
we invited people to come and like, because you also get like a high score for it, don't you? Like you salvage some stuff, and then at the end of it, tells you how much, I don't know, loot you got. I don't remember what the hell I was doing in this game in
I
terms
guess
of
you
actually
were
what I was
bringing
trying
back
to pick up.
materials of some kind and then
I
selling
think
them.
yeah.
General salvage.
You're some sort of blue-collar space worker.
Yeah.
It was the best kind
And
of
you would
space
get
worker.
letters from your daughter back on Earth who
yes.
missed you a lot.
Yeah.
Like sad drawings of
I
you
think
in space.
Richard Anton talked about it a bit before, didn't he?
He did, yeah. There's also a button that lets you swear at any point, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Yep.
what?
Yeah.
That
what
should
it
be
is.
mandatory. But no, in Eidolon doesn't, as far as I can tell, have any sort of sapient monsters in it. It absolutely has like wildcats because I got fucking messed up by a wildcat with it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a deer because this game's pretty lo-fi, so I just walked towards it and it killed me. Whereupon I respawned, like I regained consciousness some distance away. But
Well, the deer just dragged you for a while and given out. Ah, fuck it, he's too heavy.
I found a letter in Eidolon that that expressed a great deal of emotional pain. The person who had written this letter was struggling with something. They were having a very, very bad time, and the quality of writing in the game expressed that well enough that by the time I closed the letter, the environment that I was exploring had suddenly become a different place. It didn't feel like, oh, I'm just skipping through this forest anymore. It absolutely felt like this is a place where bad things have happened. And even though I knew that, I don't know, this game is fucking enormous. I've played a tiny amount of it. I knew that I was kind of safe But just like certain elements of Gone Home, especially the basement, and especially the basement on a replay, feels very deeply uncomfortable. Eidolon started to feel like a more hostile place to me. And it's really interesting that just a carefully placed piece of well-written content can do that.
It's like an old adage or cliche that PC games are about terrain, but it's startling how few of them are actually about orienteering in that way. Because it was one of my favourite things. I mean, obviously it's a big part of DayZ where you don't have a map at the start of the game, so you learn the landmarks and stuff. But it was a big part of why I loved Worm Online when I got really into that a few years ago, which was MMO set in a fantasy world, but like the frontier of that fantasy world, and everything in that game is built by players. And so all the stone paths are built by players, the signs telling you where to go are built by players, all the landmarks, all the towns, everything is built by players. Yeah. And so when you want to go meet up with a community, like I went and met up with the PC Gamer community, you had to go to the PC Gamer forum and read these instructions of like, okay, from where the new players enter, go down the hill to the east, walk past the lake till you get to a giant stone colossus, turn left,
and
go
then
up them.
They dug a tunnel, didn't they, from
that was the
area
huge,
to get you there.
Yeah, the huge town project basically that took.
Dig a big hole.
It wasn't finished when I joined, so I helped finish that giant tunnel because they built on top of a mountain by a stone colossus. The stone colossus was built by a bunch of different people, but it was built in honour of the guy who lived on the man-made island in the middle of a lake. And he was the only person in the game on the unpaid servers, because you could pay and become a premium member and go onto a different server. He was the only person on the unpaid server allowed to still have bears, because bears were deemed to be too difficult for rookies to attack and kill, so they were removed. But he had a bunch of bears that he tamed and was breeding.
Wow.
And so him on his man-made island, under the shadow of the stone colossus built in his honour, they could manage to inspire the community to build.
That guy had a cool game experience.
I played a bit of Archage this week. Has anybody been playing or watching Archage?
You got a question about it.
Some
Someone was
trailers
asking
about it, and it looks cool, but it's by the...
Tryon.
Is it Tryon?
It's Tryon.
Published.
If we've got a question about it, we
published
can
by
say
Tryon, but it's made by the guys that did that, like, G-Potato MMO, Allods Online.
It's a Russian studio.
Which was like I think it's German. Is it German MMO? Is it Russian?
I think Allods is Russian.
Allods is about like set on like floating islands in space, and you could build a ship that you could then pilot with 6 other people and fly around, and that's a really cool idea. But it was a really shit grindy MMO. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's made by those guys, but it looks really cool in all the trailers.
If we've got a question, I'll talk about it later.
And it's not actually in the questions list. Someone just asked on Twitter, what do you think of this game? And they also wanted to know whether we thought the pay-to-win model ruined it.
Yeah, I didn't know I had a pay-to-win model.
So I have played the princely amount of about 25 minutes of this game. So I consider myself a veteran. I played as part of a kind of a dynasty that. So the first cool thing about this game is that it's set on 3 continents, but it's set on 2 populated continents. One continent which has some people on it that I don't know because they're my enemies, and my continent which has cat people. Sort of Khajiit type people, and also a civilization that seems to be referencing sort of Middle Eastern, Indo-Chinese culture and architecture in a way that feels like it's just jamming everything together with no real sense of how it could possibly fit together. But the first thing that I noticed about this game that immediately appealed to me, because I'm a huge nerd for this sort of stuff, is that I can't talk to people on the other continent because I don't speak their language.
Oh, no.
I just can't. And amazingly, learning their language is not a binary. I don't just get a skill. I actually, if I look in my skills menu, the language for the other thing is like 0 to 10,000. And I can get points in that. And the more points I have in that, the more I assume I can talk to these people. But the structure of this game seems to be like what happens when you get a 14-year-old to design their dream game. And it's like, oh, you can go to space and you can be in a boat and you can also... you can be pirates, you can also just farm and stuff. But... it seems really interesting. It's got some really interesting visual styles. It seems to have a real dedication to not falling into at least stylistic MMO tropes, even if it falls into mechanical MMO tropes. So the first mount that I got in the game was like a a cross between a Chinese dragon and a kangaroo that they were just giving out. Like, that's one of the things you get. I don't know much about the free-to-play model, so I can't speak for that, I'm afraid. But my immediate impression of it was that it felt like a relatively standard mechanical MMO, but with a bunch of interesting stylistic and kind of like bolt-on elements to it. I'm going to go back to it when it launches.
It looks very pretty in trailers. Is it very pretty?
It's running in the Cry engine.
Yes.
Which means that I don't know. I don't quite know, based on my experience with it, how well the Cry engine holds up in an MMO.
It's used for Ion.
Ion, It was a Korean MMO which used the Cry engine.
Cry engine is it? It's like
Cry engine 2 was Ion, I think, but maybe the update.
I think it might be
in terms of crises. In terms of crises, which Cry engine is
these
that?
multiple crises.
Yeah.
I think it might be Cry engine 3, but it definitely doesn't look.
Was
like
the
CryEngine
what was Far Cry in? Was that a CryEngine?
Dunia.
of sorts? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the Dunia engine.
Was that
Because I remember wasn't there an MMO that used the Far Cry 1 engine? Like, did Ion use Far Cry 1 engine?
Ion used Cry engine for sure,
okay.
but there was an MMO actually that used the same engine as Far Cry.
It's pretty.
What? Because Junior is what they used for Far Cry 2,
Yeah.
right?
And also Assassin's Creed, modified.
So Far Cry 1 presumably wasn't that. Because, I mean, Crytek did their own thing, right? It was their own engine. That was what was so like, it was incredible. It was
was
like
big.
that, and it was
Maybe it
like,
just didn't have a name because they weren't licensing it yet, or at least not a name we know.
yeah. I was just wondering if, like when people say they're using CryEngine, if any of them are talking about Far Cry 1. Speaking, sorry, when you talked about Eidolon having an iPad thing, it suddenly made me realise, like, an iPad-style map would actually explain what you see on your Far Cry 2 map. Which made me think, why didn't they do that? Because they were really into immersion in that. But you have this
This
paper
weird
map,
paper map.
and paper's like, okay, that's kind of immersive. But then if you can see things moving in real time on it, that seems to shatter that immersion.
We've been doing a Far Cry 2 playthrough at Stream Friends comparatively recently. We need to do a second episode of that soon. But I was not a big fan of Far Cry 3. I thought it did some comparatively interesting stuff with outposts.
You mean the best things ever?
Yeah. I love Outposts.
In my opinion.
But for me, it was dragged down on two fronts by a pretty fucking colonialist.
Don't play the story, man.
Yeah.
You have to play the story, but yeah, you're right. It is.
Which kind of permeated every aspect.
I agree, I don't like the colonialism, but I love killing all the natives in their outposts. It's so fun.
Yeah, and also I when it was announced, I was really interested in Vas as a villain trope, but the more I played of it and the more I see of Far Cry 4, the more I'm getting tired of that particular depiction of a villain in a sort of a sense of like, wow, they're so kooky.
I think like Vas's the actor Michael Mando is really good, and then the technology for rendering him is also like I think uniquely good. I don't think I've ever seen an in-game actor that actually looks like a person in that way. Because even like L.A. Noire just looked weird. It's just
it looks
crazy, clay people.
Crazy faces on just regular polygons.
And I can recognise the technology is more advanced than previous stuff, but it's not better. It's just.
I wonder
weird
how
and
much of that was them just saying. Obviously, there's a level of performance capture and talent in animation that they worked with, but I wonder how much of that was just them saying like, let's just model Michael Mando.
Yeah. He's quite a video gamey person.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's seen Orphan Black,
I really liked him in Orphan
Black. And it's so fucking weird the first time you see him. If you're not expecting it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There are some scenes in Orphan Black. There are some scenes in Orphan Black where he breaks down in tears.
Yeah, that's weird to see too.
It was very strange.
But yeah, the first time you see someone who you only know from video games in flesh, and you literally never seen the flesh version of this person, but you know immediately who it is. Like, oh, that's Vas. That's kind of strange.
Yeah. So for me, Far Cry 2... Far Cry 2 is kind of like the Far Cry game. It got a lot of criticism for its malaria aspects.
I think Far Cry 2 is really interesting mechanically in a ton of different ways. It's a far more interesting game than Far Cry 3. But didn't you have the same, or at the very least, equal plot complaints about Far Cry 2? Because it's not a nuanced depiction.
It is absolutely not a nuanced depiction.
Rapidly talking weirdos.
I agree with that. To an extent, it feels a bit like Far Cry 3 is more outwardly and unintentionally cartoonish, which means that to me, it's problems with race and colonialism, which, to be clear, are not absent in Far Cry 2, feel more egregious to me. in that with characters like Citra and characters like
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big one. I don't feel that that Far Cry 2 has this fundamental aspect of a white savior at its core, which Far Cry 3 has in a pretty big way in Jason Brody. Far Cry 2's protagonists are drawn from a huge range of ethnicities and characters.
You're also quite clearly meant to be a scummy, bad person.
Right, absolutely.
like from the off.
Whereas in
rather
Far
than
Cry
being...
3, it sort of felt a little like Yohalem intended that to be the case, and the production team intended that to be the case, but I don't know whether or not they actually put in the legwork in the narrative to make sure that came through.
Far Cry 2 is very weird narratively. I think it is less offensive than Far Cry 3 in the story, but it had two different problems with it. One was a sort of simple, just how you integrate what I'm doing as a player with what the story is going on. I'm trying not to say narrative dissonance. It's not.
Say it,
it's
Tom.
not
It was
quite
created
that.
for this purpose, Clint Hawking, man.
So I'll explain my problem rather than trying to classify it. There are two factions in the first area, first village, the first half of the game, I think. And they have a two-fort style relationship. Headquarters across the fucking street from each other.
Right.
And you take missions from... Initially you have a choice, you can take missions from either one, and they're both sort of like different rebel faction names that are just like the People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front.
And one of them's kind of vaguely capitalistically.
Yeah. And then at a certain point, one of them screwed me over earlier. Like, one of them sends you on a mission and then like ambushes you and then says, haha, we ambushed you and now you have to work for us. And so I'm like, okay, I won't work for you. And I worked for the other guys. And I kept on working with the other guys. And then their door just closed. You couldn't open their door anymore. And so you have to do the other guys' missions. Because there's just nothing else to do in the world. It just dries up and there's nothing to do except the other person's missions. And then when you take their missions, they betray you. And then they laugh at you for betraying you. Say, I should never have taken my missions, you fool. We shouldn't have pleased. Oh, for fuck's sake. You want to do that tryst. You can't force me to do it.
I do, I'd love to get Clint Hawking to talk about this, because I do wonder if it's like he designed it as a 12-hour long game that then Ubisoft said, well, what if you could just do the other half stuff after doing the first side stuff? Then it would be a 30-hour long game.
Clint Hawking and Kim Swift are working together at Amazon at the moment, which is a really interesting team. Clint Hawking and Kim Swift working together could be potentially really interesting. So I wonder whether or not he's divorced enough from Ubisoft politics at this stage to be able to talk directly about the process of making that game and about what went on there.
Yeah.
One of my favourite narrative tricks in Far Cry 2, which I don't think I'd seen before in a game when I played it, was I had a companion called Flora Gillen, who was very no-nonsense about everything. And she would rescue me from danger and stuff, but at the same time, she was making it clear that she was not particularly happy about this sort of thing. And in one of the missions, we had this great plan, which was I was going to go and set fire to something.
That's Far Cry 2,
Yeah, I was going to go and set fire to something, or steal something, or
It was probably medicine, food, or vital supplies.
this nihilistic plan of setting fire to food or something. But and then I was going to meet up with Flora, who was going to have flown from one end of the map to the other, and we were going to get on a plane, and we were going to carry it back to Pearl or something. And halfway through this was set up very straight-faced. And halfway through this mission, Flora accidentally crashed her plane. And because of the narrative structure of Far Cry, where it doesn't, to me at least, feel like, oh, we're entering this level now. Like, you're in this level. It feels like you've gone to this part of the world to do this particular job. The fact that Flora's plane journey was cut short by her being shot down and crashing in the savannah was a really interesting swerve for me. To suddenly go, oh shit, right, Flora's crashed. I've got to get in a car and drive all the way over here to sort her out or something. Was a really interesting moment for me. I guess it was the fact that the objectives which had been made so clear to me, and which hadn't been subverted at all in the story up until this point, was subverted in what felt at the time like quite a dynamic fashion. It was pretty cool.
I mentioned two problems, then I only described one. The other one was...
Was Flora crashing her plane?
It was related in that when you say your mission was to set fire to something, my mission was to, destroy a cache of medicine, and then my buddy contacted me to say, oh, your optional mission, if you want to stay friends with me, you have to also destroy their water supply.
Oh, jeez.
Why does anybody want either of these things to happen? Like, particularly you. You're not even working with one of the big factions. You're a mercenary like me. You want me to also just, like, ultra kill the civilians. Just really make sure everyone dies of starvation and
Like,
disease.
if we're coming down to, like, this level of stuff, I feel that Far Cry 2's grimly, ludonarratively dissonant, nihilistic approach to you have to be an arsehole to everybody was more effective to me than Far Cry 3's this is actually a satire on white saviourhood, which didn't come across to me at all.
I think Far Cry 3's thing is, but isn't it fun?
Right, but
that
at the
was
same
the
time,
kind of they're trying to
Best holiday ever!
narratively justify the fact that but Far Cry 2 is just a bit of a downer. Could we, just make it really
right,
quite
if
fun?
being a bit of a downer comes at the expense of, like, colonialistly, like, making subjects of a whole load of native peoples.
The trouble is, like, if an attempt at satire isn't acutely observed, then it just becomes a reinforcement of everything it's trying to satirise.
Right, yeah.
That's what happens to Far Cry 3. So
It happens a bit to Blood Dragon as well.
So in Far Cry 3,
God.
it goes back to, so there are, like, the depiction of black characters is tribalistic. Massively, you have to be really fucking careful with that, because that's basically a racist stereotype if you're not going to handle it correctly. And then also to have the mighty whitey thing, as the TV trope's called, of the white character that goes in and then becomes more expert at the culture of these people than the people who are actually
I say,
You've
give
got
me
all
your
the
tattoo,
tattoos.
I'm the
Yeah,
best. Yes.
exactly, yeah. And you gotta, like, that game's not smart enough to do that and actually kind of break it apart and then...
All these problems go away if you just cut out the plot. All related missions.
Yeah, I loads
And
of
it
fun.
still has way more content than most games. And
I loved playing Far Cry 3. The outposts were so much fun and they're so varied and so well designed. But that's the plot stuff.
I spoke to the guys making Jaeger, who are making Dead Island 2 at the moment, and they did Spec Ops The Line, and when they used the creative directive there, when he used the term ludonarrative dissonance, put it in air quotes and said, as Clint Hawking called it. And so I told him about our drinking game. And so
people-
now that's spreading around Jaeger, because they all really like the idea of every time anyone uses ludonarrative dissonance, they have to drink.
They take a shot.
For people only listening on the podcast, Graham kind of, when saying ludonarrative dissonance, kind of made it like an octopus, just waving outwards.
You gotta shimmy around your arms a little bit.
Ludonarrative dissonance.
My big problem with Far Cry 3 and with Blood Dragon was that it was full of fucking snakes. And I am very severely... I have a phobia of snakes. And that made that game difficult to play. Because a lot of it is about walking through long grass. And the snake animation
I
involves...
think snakes and long grass are a bad combination.
Oh, yes. Well, it means you can't see them. They just sneak up on you. The animation involves them biting your arm and your character kind of having to shake them off your arm and stuff like that. And they made that problem infinitely worse in Blood Dragon by making these snakes neon, making them kind of like make this terrifying hissing, buzzing noise, and also glow multiple colours when they attack you. And unlike in Far Cry 3, where they don't, in Blood Dragon the snakes actually move around, which was one step too far. So I played 2 sessions of Blood Dragon after having bought it, and never played it again.
It sounds like, we have mentioned it before, but I'll just, since it's very relevant, it sounds like you will be able to play Far Cry 4 without the plot. Since when a co-op friend joins, it disables
Yeah,
the
that's
plot. So therefore,
that's really interesting.
even if there's no other way, we can just set up a dummy slave computer. What do they call it? A zombie? Where hackers use like a PC that's just controlled remotely.
That's some very
a zombie computer just to log in as a
Log in and just slowly
It's a-
rotate on the spot.
redundant co-op body who just like sits in his little one-person gyrocopter and never takes off. You just go off and have your fun.
I've heard some really interesting things, just from the marketing and the different tones that are coming out of the marketing of Far Cry 4, which seem to suggest, if you look at the writing team on Far Cry 4, Kim Belair and people working as lead writers, it feels a little like they are trying to do really interesting self-critical stuff with regard to Far Cry 3 and everything, and kind of being stymied every so often by Ubisoft's promotional measures, which must be an incredibly frustrating environment to work in as a writer. I don't know.
It feels to me like Ubisoft just they work on finding a formula, and then once they found that formula, they commit to that. So like they feel like with Far Cry 3, it was a big success. It was critically acclaimed. It sold really well.
So the formula's making the game racist.
Well, but you bring up like Vass and what an interesting villain he appeared to be, and then it's like, okay, we've got to have a Vass like character. Okay, so we're gonna have this crazy guy who takes selfies.
What a guy!
And
He
it's
wears pink.
Okay, Far Cry 3 has these things where you take drugs and then you go on these trippy levels. Okay, we're going to do a spiritual version of these where you'll go on these kind of Zen experiences where you get attacked by these weird ghostly apparitions in this dream landscape. And that's now a part of Far Cry 4.
Yep.
It's like,
We got a Shangri-La, Tom.
yeah, Shangri-La, but it's
I haven't seen that yet.
it's like everything that's in Far Cry 3 is like, we've got to have now like the Tibetan equivalent of it in order to meet our quota of... And it's the same with Watch Dogs of like, everyone liked Far Cry 3, they really liked those radio towers, so now we're going to have CTOS towers and Watch Dogs that you have to climb up. And so there's going to be an equivalent to Far Cry 4.
Well, when we think about a Bethesda RPG, we have a very specific image in mind,
But that's one game. I mean, I guess
Well, no,
Fallout,
but Bethesda Softworks make... And I'm not beefing with Bethesda here. I think their games are by and large fantastic. But they tend to make similar versions of the games multiple times with revisions on each. Like if we look at Oblivion and Fallout 3, or Skyrim and possibly what's coming in the future in the Fallout series, and it's almost as though for them their modus operandi, their design trademark is building these very specific kind of worlds. And I wonder if Ubisoft are just running the same game.
There is another reason to do that beyond just like being commercially safe and saying, oh, that worked last time, so let's do it again. Which is that in Bethesda's case, they have like a big team of people who are now trained in their tool set.
Yeah, absolutely.
That involves like not just there's the Elder Scrolls Construction Kit, which is a really versatile thing, and GEC, I think was the Fallout 3 equivalent, which is basically the same thing. But not just like the sort of code and understanding how that works, but like the way you build a dungeon is out of these prefab bits. And so you have the artists make the prefab bits and they bolt them together into little like template things like a desk and chairs or like a certain thing. And then another set of designers bolt those together into rooms and stuff, and then the rooms get bolted together into corridors and things by someone who's actually designing a quest. And that's the same process for Fallout 4, and it's the same for Skyrim, and it was the same for Oblivion. And to some extent it's based on what they did with Morrowind. And so that whole thing is like a sort of institutional way
It's
of
like
life.
the reason they can make games this big and this comprehensive is that their pipeline is just so efficient.
I guess, that is the fundamental thing. But I guess for me, Bethesda's stuff feels more organic in a way. Like, obviously there is a structural separation between overworld and dungeons and stuff like that. But it doesn't feel so...
cynical?
Segmented in the same way as Ubisoft games
I think,
do. Like Ubisoft games have this is the dream world part, this is the overworld part, this is the forts, this is the plotline stuff.
These are the towers.
These are the towers. And
you don't want to be playing the main quest anymore?
That's the
try
same
this
thing
menu.
of like I think Assassin's Creed 3 was 800 people, like literally 800 people, and they have
an enormous amount of people.
enormous amount of people, and they have offices all around the world, so they're working 24/7 on this game at different points. So there's like I'm more impressed with that game from a project management point of view. Is astonishing.
There are 4,000 people in the credits for Black Flag.
Shit!
4,000.
4,000
That's in the
people.
credits, though. I think they credit just fucking everybody.
They do credit like all the
That's
PR
the size
people
of
and
my
stuff
town.
like
It takes a village to make an Assassin's Creed.
Black Flag was cool because
I like Black Flag.
it went really hard on the ship stuff. And ship stuff did appear in Assassin's Creed 3 as an
But
experiment.
it was terrible.
It wasn't very good. But they still took it and thought, oh, well, this clearly has potential.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they actually made it a really big part of 4 because they clearly thought, okay, this actually works. We've played it, and it's one of the few decisions that Ubisoft design decisions not being based on marketing, not being based on simply this feature has been seen to work, and actually a thing that I think they believed in.
Yeah.
And thought could really be the basis of the whole game. And now not just Assassin's Creed 4, but Assassin's Creed Rogue.
Plus, it neatly fit a commercially viable theme.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, Pirates of the Caribbean's a big blockbuster
Well,
game.
but I think
this would be good for pirates.
I think with Assassin's Creed, they've just got a whole book of themes they could go into if the mechanics served it.
They got to do the
it was
Japanese
like
one
they did
someday.
the-
haven't
I
they?
was talking
They
about
did the
this
whole
earlier
tower
today.
defense stuff, and
Yeah.
was it Brotherhood or whatever?
It was in Revelations.
Revelations that had all the tower defense stuff, and that just seems like that's not thematic.
For
That's
me-
just that seems like a popular genre. We need another thing, and we've got this studio in Malaysia or whatever that's not doing anything.
For me,
Yeah,
it's,
let's get them to make it.
it's
Yeah.
weird in that it feels like
Crazy.
Assassin's Creed games, at least in my eyes, are kind of like there are two cards being laid down on the table for every game, and one of the cards is sort of like these new mechanical improvements they're making to the assassin or to the ways that you interact with the world, and the other card is just the world, or is the city that you're exploring, or is the time period or something. So Revelations I didn't find particularly compelling. There was that system where it made you make a billion different types of bombs or something.
Was that an Assassin's Creed 2 game?
As in Revelations.
Yes, it was.
I'm trying to remember
it was-
where.
Oh yeah, it was an Ezio. It was an Ezio.
Ezio's last game.
Right.
You could make bombs that made people angry. You can make bombs that made people
That's typical,
so
I think,
angry.
for bombs.
not be able to see. You can make bombs that made people like hungry or something. There were loads of different bomb opportunities.
Hunger Bomb is
Yeah, is that a hunger bomb? But the Constantinople for me is one of my favourite Assassin's Creed settings that's ever been drawn. It was drawn in rich colours and tapestries and carpets and busy places.
Big
and
spires as well. Lovely.
beautiful spires.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
the city was enormous. And Ezio at this stage was this kind of grey fox that wandered around the city like, I'm going to do something dangerous now. But I'm going to struggle a little because I'm a bit old.
I think that's what the Grey Fox in Oblivion actually said.
Really?
You're the Grey Fox.
I'm going to do something a bit dangerous. But no, so it's weird in that Constantinople is not necessarily my favourite Assassin's Creed game by far in terms of how it plays, but in terms of the space that I'm inhabiting and the space that I'm moving through, it ranks really quite highly up there for me. Whereas 3 is just so
Yeah,
boring
3 is
in
bad
terms
in a
of-
lot of ways.
Do you ever think like Assassin's Creed was just Ubisoft looking at Metal Gear Solid with its hopping around of themes, settings, and timelines, and thinking, how do we make this but make it clear in a greater way?
Let's
And,
make
like,
it mad.
it's like so much the similar themes of like moving around settings and
Yeah.
themes. It's a stealth game, similar reliance on like virtual reality as a trope to hop around, and it just seems like it's like Ubisoft's answer to
What
Metal
if
Gear
there's-
Solid is
What if you have a really tiny sword, but it's in your arm?
yeah.
It's just great.
Like we criticised Ubisoft for kind of having this template and basically working around.
Pretty good template.
But it's a pretty good template.
It's an alright.
And also, like, remember back to Assassin's Creed 1? No one had made a fucking game like that or proposed a game like that.
Yeah,
before. Like, that was
like-
so fucking exciting.
Yeah, it was revolutionary. It genuinely was, like, and it changed the industry. Like, parkour movement mechanics,
Yeah, that was-
for
Yeah,
example.
absolutely.
Hadn't been done before and has never not been done since.
There's this moment in Assassin's Creed 1 where they're teaching you about what now is just this utterly ubiquitous maneuver, which is the dive from the top of a tower into a
Leap
thing.
of faith,
They're teaching about this moment, and you jump off this tower, and the dude who jumped off the tower next to you breaks his leg.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh god, no, I've broken my leg. And the first time I played it, the scene that immediately follows that is climbing back up the tower again, which feels a bit strange. But it was a really cool moment of like, oh, hang on, I just did a really cool thing. And I did it all by myself, and it was great. And now I just do it all the time. And it doesn't feel... By the end of Assassin's Creed 1, there was a moment in Assassin's Creed 1 where in order to reach a viewpoint or something, I needed to climb the Blue Mosque. And I couldn't activate the viewpoint if I was being chased by guards. And unfortunately, as I climbed the Blue Mosque, there are about 40 guards chasing me. And so I had to run round and round the top floor of this.
This is what you do in games, isn't it? You run
Just
around
run around
things.
these, yeah.
Yes, it's my modus operandi. I had to run around this
And
thing.
someone joined your game and they're like, I've got to track this guy, but he's just running in circles around this
Until I kind of got to this weird, almost like geometric angle where nobody could see me and I could climb this tower again. And even by that point in Assassin's Creed 1, it was a bit like, this isn't really... This doesn't feel exciting anymore. So it's a bit sad.
I think the problem with the problem with the Assassin's Creed thing is that, and the Ubisoft thing in general, is that we're so acutely familiar with that template because they release 2 games a year, perhaps one, or at least it's annual. Whereas with the Bethesda thing,
Metronomic.
it's one every 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't see the
In
crap.
Bethesda's defense, they're much slower.
The thing I always come back to with this stuff is that, like, the things I love most don't exist anymore. They're from the past.
Oh, God.
I should contextualise this.
Yes.
Within video games, the things I love most do not exist anymore because people aren't making sequels to it, and I would dearly love if they did. And so anytime someone is cynical about the Sims expansions, I'm just like, but if you love the Sims, but isn't it brilliant? It's just like these people constantly making stuff for you. That's brilliant. And so if you love Assassin's Creed, or if you love that Ubisoft formula, as clearly millions of people do, then it's fucking amazing.
Owned by
this is
0% of people on Steam.
Yeah.
Have any of you played The Sims 4 yet?
I played it I played it at a preview event a month ago for 4 hours.
I watched a GIF where a man fried breakfast and then the frying pan became attached to his hand permanently, and then all the other GIFs in the series are just him going about his daily life with the frying pan stuck to his hand, including eating other meals whilst using like a fork in his frying pan hand and then just putting the frying pan through his head. So I feel like I played it.
Yeah, you've got the whole experience. It's really weird. I've been playing it a lot because it's a Sims game, and you start those games up and then suddenly it's the evening. But it's very strange in that my experience with The Sims really started with The Sims 3 because I never had computers that could run it previously until I got my new computer and could run The Sims 3 and played a good chunk of that. But I have friends who've been playing The Sims 3 and have got all 11 expansions that add every conceivable thing that you could think of that a human could do. And so to them, I can see The Sims 4 as being a very sparse experience because everything has suddenly been torn back to just like, you can go and make some soup now. Do you want to make some soup? Well, I was a werewolf 3 weeks ago.
It's always the case with Sims games is that they add all these expansions and then pull it right back for the core game. And it's a very EA sports thing almost. Like if you've ever played their golf games, like Tiger Woods has this, it's not Tiger Woods licensed anymore, but it always has this routine of like, this is a serious golf simulation, and then like 3 years time Tiger Woods is getting struck by lightning to enter a fever mode that allows him to hit more powerful shots and stuff like that. And then they do the Batman thing of going back to the grittier, more dark
gritty golf.
like golf game. And like
the
Sims has always had the same sort of like arc
golf origins
of like here's the core game,
a man with a stick,
and it's a fairly straightforward life simulation sim, and then we have all these expansions full of nut stuff. And I think they've tried to, and they've been criticised for this, I think they've tried to hit a kind of balance point because obviously Sims 4 doesn't have the breadth of content that Sims 3 did with its expansions, but every career you can have in The Sims 4 is fucking weird. Like, there is no janitor, police officer, or fireman anymore.
No, I have
it's
4
all
Sims at the moment.
Astronaut, pop star, that kind of stuff.
One of them is an artist. One of them is a chef that can't cook. One of them is a spy that just really wants to own a fancy house and doesn't want to do anything else.
God, that's me.
And one of them is a burgeoning musician who is refusing to do anything music related and instead of specialising in comedy, which feels misguided.
They're all creative or now like fantasy, like spy, astronaut, that sort of stuff based now. Like there is no just I just have an ordinary job and I'm an ordinary person anymore.
I'm just a game developer. It's terrible.
You could be a writer and your starting position is a writer's assistant, which I kind of is like it's kind of like no writer. What writer has an assistant? Like it's kind of denigrating of writers that's the starting position and aggrandizing your writers. The suggestion that some writer somewhere has an assistant that you work for.
Isn't there an editorial assistant position?
There used to be a feature where you would make the coffee.
Does that appear in the credits of the movie as like assistant to Mr. Seymour Hoffman or something?
Yes.
But no, it's weird. I think I'm enjoying it a lot. It feels like a lot of the stuff is really, really slick, more than it needs to be. A lot of the animation loops that The Sims go through are really polished, rather than in The Sims 3 where it would feel very much like, now I'm doing my cooking animation, now I'm doing my turning animation, now I'm doing my going and watching TV. Now they can, walk over with a plate in hand and sit down and start talking, or something.
That multitasking makes a difference mechanically as
really
well,
does.
because you don't need to just... I'm just spending time watching television right now because I need to get my happiness thing out by being entertained. You can also have a conversation at the same time, which means that your social bar goes up at the same time.
It makes conversations something that in The Sims 3, played without expansions, of course, conversations were a fucking chore. They were just the worst because I would have to be micromanaging one sim and then other sims would have to be, doing other stuff and I'd have to be very carefully sorting stuff out. In this, I can quite happily have like 4-person conversations running in the kitchen while I'm working out how to do something else. And I really appreciate that level of stuff, but I can understand the degree of frustration. My friend Janine plays Sims 3 with everything, and I can understand the degree of frustration that she must have coming into it and just going like, there's nothing to do. What can I do here?
Some of the creative tools, like there's some creative tools which are really great, like the building a house stuff.
That's amazing.
It's way better than it's ever been before, but then at the same time, your ability to customize the color of a shirt has just gone. You've just got like 6 presets now for the color of the
Janine
shirt,
talks
or
as well
3
about-
presets, and you can't change that.
About how there's no kind of like set barometer for what colours mean across the whole game. So, for example, if you want to match a white shirt with a white skirt, the Sims definition of white might be a completely different thing across 2 objects. Whereas in Sims 3 with Create a Style, you'd be able to go like, no, actually these things are working together. Which I guess if you're trying to make something that's aesthetically interesting, you run up against a big problem early on, which is that the chair's white means something very different to the wallpaper's white. Which seems like a bit of a blooper.
I went to EGX Rezzed this year, and I'm not a huge fan of games conferences. Even
There's
if
a
the
lot of games there.
It's all really
Fucking
loud.
nerds
There's
as
a bit
well.
of fucking warehouse. But like next door to it was a Doll's House convention, and there were a bunch of games journalists that basically snuck off from the games convention to go to the Doll House convention because it was much nicer.
Is this the beginning of a romantic comedy?
It was basically like this was the Sims convention because it was just like they were selling little plastic baggies with like fruit salads inside for £1 kind of thing. It was like, oh wow,
How many
this
did
is
you
like
buy?
this is well, none, but one got bought for me as a gift. So I've still got that at home. I don't have a dollhouse to put it in. But it's like, oh, this is microtransactions. It's like these people are all The Sims fans. But a lot of it is just people buying things for aesthetic purposes. Like if you're really into The Sims, if you're a Sims fan, and I've played Sims 1, 2 and 3, and I've played 1 and 3 a lot. But I wouldn't class myself as a fan in the same way as certain people are. But if you're a Sims fan, then what you care about is creating an aesthetically pleasing world.
Yeah.
And that extends to the styles of people's clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and making
totally.
this all great. And it's the exact same people who were building the doll houses. They weren't just looking for a certain kind of wallpaper. Or any kind of wallpaper. They were looking for
I
a
wasn't just
specific
looking
colour.
for a certain kind of wallpaper.
When I walked into that warehouse full of people.
It seems weird that, like, this almost feels like the SimCity problem, where they had one new thing they wanted to do, which is simulate every individual person, and that cost them so much that they had to scrap loads of things people really cared about, it turned out. And then also seemingly make it always online, which they claimed was related. And
I played The Sims 4.
they just ended up with the thing, like, the things people really cared about are gone, and the thing they replaced it with was sort of, in theory, nice, like a good back-of-the-box feature, but then in practice, like, if you actually followed a given sim, it didn't make any sense anyway.
Fudged as well, yeah.
I think Sims 4 works.
I think it works, and it's not always online. Like, it doesn't feel like a trade-off in the exact way. Like, it doesn't feel like the animation thing is what sacrificed the creative style thing. But
guess-
it does feel... I mean, it feels, first of all, like, oh, it's a Sims game. Like, to me, as a kind of casual player, it feels like, oh, it's just Sims again.
Yeah, I
And
guess
the stuff that's lost really pisses off the fans.
Yeah.
And, like...
And they
Worst
get
of all
angry.
worlds.
yeah, and
People who don't care are bored how similar it is. The people who do care are angry at how different it is.
And the thing is, like, Sims 3 was pretty progressive, actually. Like, Sims 3 was launched, no DRM. But
Seriously?
if no DRM, like, that was a really big fucking deal at the time. In fact, like, PC Gamer's redesign issue or news spread at the opening of Monitor for that month was DRM is dead. And it was a picture of a gravestone within The Sims 3 because they
remember
just
that
launched it.
Yeah.
And if you bought it and you registered it online, which you could only do if you did buy it, you got a second town which you could then explore. So they gave you basically, they had no DRM, but
was
they had a
pretty
bunch
good.
of fucking extra
quite
content
like that.
if you bought it legitimately. And then
Was that their Project $10? Was that EA? Yeah, like they did it with Mass Effect 2 too, where like
Did they?
if you register it, then it was partly to fight used games as well. If you register it, then you get a bunch of DLC for free.
The carrot rather than stick.
Oh, great
jeez.
idea! That's a really nice thing.
It's weird.
I assume it didn't work, which is why they've gone back to DRM and
It's
things.
weird
But
how quickly we've moved on from God, what was it? What was it that EA and everybody was doing about a year and a half ago?
Star Force?
No, where
Once upon a
like
time.
if you bought the game used, what was it that they were doing? It was
Well,
this weird-
Project $10 was a thing where
Yes.
there would be $10 worth of DLC that everyone could get it, but if you bought the game legitimately and registered your CE key, your one-time use key, then you got it for free.
And we've just
so if you sold
completely
it
moved on
used,
from
then,
that.
then people could still get that stuff, but they had to pay $10 for it, and that was why it was called that.
Like that doesn't exist anymore.
I don't even remember that being
It was
called
really-
a thing.
I only
Yeah.
heard that name like once, so it might not even be a real name for it.
I
But
literally
it was
only
true. That a
just
whole bunch of
remembered
games
it
did that
now.
for.
That's cool.
It's very strange.
It was. I mean, the trouble was the DLC was just like
It
for
was
Mass
like-
Effect. It's just bullshit.
In Dragon Age, it was like
just
you
all
could
these
have some.
stupid bits of armor that don't make any sense and don't fit with the narrative, with like the
Yeah.
fiction, and clutter up your inventory and just sort of appear there magically, and that like I didn't want the stuff,
It feels a bit like. I mean, if
which
we
is
were-
fine. I didn't have to get it. But
Right now, we're currently balancing our glasses on 3 games cases. Left 4 Dead, The Last of Us, and Fable 2. And I'm thinking about the DLC structure for The Last of Us, which was kind of just like... I mean, nowadays it's been cluttered by you can buy a whole bunch of different hats for the multiplayer.
What, in
I
Arsenal?
didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
No way, I've not.
You can buy... I would say... No, this is a conservative estimate.
Wait,
I'm not-
wait. I haven't played The Last of Us, but I know enough about it. Like, in the multiplayer, do you play as either Ellie
No.
or the guy? No, you're just another person.
You're
Okay,
just-
so it's not like
One-on-one deathmatch
not like-
between Ellie and
it's not like sad. Everyone's a sad Ellie,
No.
but they're wearing a different hat.
No, it's like... I mean, this is a conservative estimate, but I think you can probably buy about 700 hats for about £20 that you put on. But at least initially, like, and I mean, I'm talking about this following up from... What does it say? From the creators of Uncharted. Weird. Okay. Following up from like Project $10, when this was launched, they basically said you can buy a season pass that will give you 2 multiplayer packs and 1 single player DLC pack. And the single player DLC pack they delivered was Left Behind, which was really critically acclaimed, and I've played and is like super good. And that feels to me like we've actually taken a step forward from, hey, do you want some armor that looks a bit like Commander Shepard in Mass Effect?
Yeah. I think when we do have the Citizen Kane of games, it will have unlockable hats. I just don't see a way that it won't. There's no...
Unlockable sleds.
You know, there's different trails you get on the mountain.
I
They should have
wrote
called it the hats of
a
us,
post
really.
about what it would be like if Citizen Kane, if like artistically worthy film tie-ins had to have compulsory multiplayer, because Bioshock had multiplayer added, and they had
Oh, Jesus,
yeah.
they did, didn't
they had the multiplayer mode. One of the multiplayer modes was beat each other to death with golf clubs.
Oh my
And it
God.
was called "Killing You Kindly." Would you kindly thing?
I hate
and
that
it was just like
so much.
one of gaming's greatest artistic moments, in my opinion. One of the most like forceful and effective narrative moments that I experience in games, just being shat on for multiplayer.
It would be like that moment halfway through the 3rd act of Journey being turned into a multiplayer buff or something.
I'll link the post in the show notes, but it did involve a Citizen Kane sledding game.
God, it's terrible. But I mean, for people who haven't played it, The Last of Us' multiplayer is really surprisingly fantastic. I don't mean this with like qualifiers, like it's alright for multiplayer mode. It's a really, really cool and interesting multiplayer mode. Before I started playing multiplayer games, I kind of had this image of multiplayer games as a really interesting space where everybody thinks tactically and like, you know, like hides from each other or something. And then I play multiplayer games and everybody, including me, just wants to get to the place where people are shooting each other and then shoot each other and then call in an airstrike. But The Last of Us' multiplayer really feels like kind of what I imagined multiplayer as being. There's a mode called Survivors, which is permadeath. Once you start playing, if you die, you're out for the rest of the match. And the matches are balanced and paced carefully enough that is simultaneously a big thing and not really particularly a problem, in that you're not going to feel left behind. Which is okay.
You're either The Last of Us or you're left behind. Yeah.
But no, it's a really, really interesting, tense multiplayer mode that is essentially like a weaponized game of hide and seek, where you're moving through these snowbound or mist-bound maps, trying to work out where other people are and sticking together as a group and hastily crafting pipe bombs to lay traps and things. If you haven't played The Last of Us' multiplayer, especially if you're playing Last of Us Remastered and you're looking for I guess, something to play once you've finished all the story stuff. Do not leave the multiplayer behind. I said it again.
Stop making Left Behind puns.
Do not leave the...
Don't be the Last of Us not playing multiplayer.
Don't be the Last of Us not playing multiplayer. You'll be left behind.
Don't leave it Uncharted.
Don't leave it Uncharted.
Jesus Christ.
You will be...
Oh my God.
That's the thing that you should be playing. Play that multiplayer there. Because it's pretty good.
It's a shame it'll never come to PC. Like, why has Naughty Dog never really been on PC? They've been shackled to Sony.
It's weird.
It's been strange. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of, to an extent, I don't know if it's the...
Last of Us
is
is
so-
exclusive, is it? Is it
Yeah,
on
it's
Xbox as well?
No,
when
only
we
PC.
talk about... like,
Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
fine.
so-
Sony gave us
Sony.
such money.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of press when the big consoles were released for next gen about like, oh, which one's better, and it sort of seems that for developers that it's in our favor if they're kind of the same, right? You know, the ideal situation is that there is console parity because that just makes the industry work better for everybody. We don't necessarily want one thing that's legions ahead of everybody else.
And more PC versions, because if you're not console exclusive, if you're not exclusive to one console, then there's no reason not to also be on PC.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but for the same measure, I don't know whether or not, in the end, it is beneficial to designers in the industry that platform exclusives exist. And when I say platform exclusives, I include PC exclusives in there. I don't know whether or not that's beneficial.
I think a lot of PC exclusives would like to be on consoles in a lot of cases. It's just a kind of, the amount of technical... You have to have a team of a certain size.
There are no deals to get PC exclusives because
No,
nobody owns PC.
Yeah.
The people I talk to who go for console exclusives, they say they do it for marketing reasons.
Right.
Like, they do it because they get to go on stage at Xbox's or Sony's show during E3, basically, and the marketing that you get from that is worth it, basically. And then you launch your PC 6 months later, and everyone's heard of you because you were on the console.
I have a relevant stat about this. The Last of Us apparently sold something like 3 million in its last 11 months on sale, like since it's been out.
That's quite a lot.
And Diablo 3 sold 3.6 million in its first week.
Oh,
The number was
Diablo 3 being a PC exclusive.
6 million. I think it was in the 6 millions for both of them.
that's remarkable.
Which is just nuts that Diablo 3 sold that many in the first week.
I've been playing Diablo 3
Good
for the first time ever. I've been playing it on PlayStation 4, but we won't mention that because this is a PC games podcast. So I've been playing it on PC with my mouse and keyboard that I know how to operate.
Actually, the two versions are really different. Like,
Are they?
yeah, they are. Like, they're like massive mechanics in the.
One is a first-person shooter.
They don't
Turret
It's actually-
sequences.
On PC, it's more of a walking simulator.
Actually, it's very-
Console's got
secret
quick time
box
events.
discovery
So.
it's a very deep and kind of personal game on the PC.
But so here's what I'm kind of thinking about Diablo 3 is that it feels to me like a game in a specific genre that is remarkably polished, but not necessarily particularly innovative.
Well, the thing is, like, it's the same formula as Diablo 1. And at the time, Diablo 1 was innovative in that it was an RPG that was about fighting and made fighting feel good. So it was, imagine an RPG in an era of Infinity engine games like Baldur's Gate and Torment.
Yeah.
And actually, instead of...
That must have felt kind of interesting.
And it was, it was, still today, RPGs suffer from having shit combat in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
And Diablo 3 is an RPG about building a character, about the systems that your character is interacting with, like the maths of how much damage your moves are doing, and the kind of the different abilities, the many different abilities you want to kind of combine together into a build. And the combat still feels fucking amazing. It feels as good as any game. Like the feedback you get from punching a thing in that game is as good as any game.
I'm playing Demon Hunter, so I'm essentially a machine gun on legs at this stage.
Yeah, that's how that operates.
But that's all right to me. Also, the writing and the voice acting is terrible, but it's terrible in a really, really watchable way.
Yeah.
I think the wizard. Wait, you play as you get to choose your gender, don't you? Regardless of
any class.
So I played as a female wizard, and the female wizard voice I really like because she's precocious and arrogant in a way that's
kind of like my Demon Hunter.
Infectiously likable. Like she's just she's not a jerk. She just really has a high opinion of herself and will
My
constantly
Demon
say
Hunter,
so.
I don't think has a high opinion of herself, but she does hate everything. So characters will say, Leia or Leah is like, oh, I want to open an inn one day. And my demon hunter's just like, I would never stay there. I would rather sleep in a field.
So your character is a jerk.
Right, yes. So, that's all right. But you got Deck Arcane, who is just, like... Deck Arcane is speaking in what somebody who has never heard a fantasy RPG before thinks that fantasy RPGs sound like. He's like, oh, the angels are coming, and you must grab the sword and forge it into the something or another before something terrible happens to me.
The thing about Diablo's plot, though, is that Blizzard completely know what they're doing with this stuff. Like, the plot of Diablo 3 is designed to be skipped. Because the first Diablo 3 is a game that you're going to play again and again and again. It's about building your character. It's about going through the same environments and getting loot and becoming powerful and feeling really good about that. And once you've done that story once, you're going to be mashing the spacebar to get through every conversation. You're going to turn the cutscenes off and you're just going to be playing. You're going to be going into the areas, and that's the game for you. That's the game, really. So what Blizzard know is that they have to communicate the main story beats as efficiently as possible in as short a time as possible.
Totally.
In a way that you can get without ever listening to any of the conversations.
This is the thing.
That's how it's designed.
I've already decided that I'm going to take a big break after I finish Act 1, and I'm just going to play other stuff for like 8 months. But I just know that...
That's a big break.
No, I mean like a big break. But I just know that because of what you've been talking about the narrative, when I come back to it, I'll be like, alright, this is what I'm doing. I've got to go and do the thing. Diablo has to be defeated. He's the bad man.
The entire point of Diablo, as a concept, as an entire series, is, look, we know, like, some people can't be asked to listen to all that fucking conversation. that is Diablo, basically.
It's the anti-Gone Home.
It's taking RPGs and saying, how about there isn't just reams of text and massive, like, endless talking? How about it's just about the punching?
Who wants to kill some goat men?
And it's so singular in that aim and so effective at achieving it. I actually love Diablo. I love Diablo 3 especially.
You know what I miss about Diablo 1 that hasn't really been done as well since? Was hitting a zombie in the head with a cudgel. It was much simpler back then, and like not every weapon had its own look or anything, so every low-level mace looked the same, and every low-level set of armour looked the same. But also because there was just less flash and less skills and less abilities, like a lot of the time, particularly as a warrior, you were just clicking on people to literally hit them with your actual weapon.
Yeah.
A thing which, by the way, never happens in Diablo 3.
That's true.
You cannot ever hit someone with your weapon, there is no ability for that.
Yeah.
And the sound effect for hitting a zombie in the head with a cudgel was just perfect. It was like this kind of slight squelch, slight crunch, and then it's kind of and a slump as it falls to the ground.
I might have been just because I was younger, because I'm a baby in the games industry and also in human life. But I remember Diablo 1 as feeling legitimately sinister.
Yeah, it was. It was quite...
I don't have that feeling with Diablo 3.
That's true.
Yeah, it was very much about...
Yeah.
You felt very alone, and it was just this tiny, tiny village.
Yes.
And then just everything else was just beneath it. And you just went deeper and deeper beneath it, and it got worse and worse.
Torchlight to an extent.
The first boss was the Butcher, who was just a man, like a massively fat demon thing with a meat cleaver, sitting in a room just full of dismembered corpses, just like gore just fucking everywhere. And it was pretty fucking sinister. It was weird.
Which isn't the room with, that's not inspired your decor, has it?
No.
Not the room we're sitting in. No.
The Butcher's in Diablo 3 as well, but...
Oh, is he?
He is, but...
In which act?
He's in Act 1.
Oh, have I just not encountered him?
I think you probably have, but you probably just breeze past him. He's not that hard. He's got like this... He fights on a giant grate, and bits of the grate kind of light up with flame, and you have to dodge it.
I don't think I've fought him yet. I'm near the end of Act 1. I'm currently...
Pretty sure it's in Act 1. Maybe.
I've just fought the big spider queen lady.
Yeah, that's an Act 1. Yeah, so you're about 2/3 of the way through Act 1, I think.
Because the game is enormous.
Yeah, it's bigger than you'd think, especially with the 5th act as well. It's quite big. But it's all about punching. Don't expect any kind of weird swerve from the punching kind of thing. Like, my favourite skill in the game currently is literally called Fist for 1,000 Punches or something. for the monk, which is her, like, the left click skill, her most basic skill.
I fucking love that skill.
Oh, it's so
you can
good.
trigger chains of exploding hearts.
Should I play monk in adventure mode then?
Oh, adventure mode.
Exploding palm, isn't it? the one where people blow up and then it infects
But
other
can't
people
you
when
use
blowing
Way
up.
of 1,000 Punches to set it up or something like that?
I feel like it's not called that. I feel like it might be Way of 1,000 Fists or something.
Wave a thousand fists.
Yeah.
No, Wave 1,000 Punches. That's
Wave a thousand
might be
fists.
I remember using one and then using the other to kind of like...
Well, the thing is, if you actually
Which is the Way of 1,000 Fists? Is it the one that hits a lot of different things?
Yeah.
No,
I've just got a shotgun as the
it's a
demon.
3-part combo, and the first one is a big punch.
Ah, yes.
The second one is like
Each one's different.
massive, like 24 punches, and then the third one is like a big AOE kind of double
Yeah.
smash thing. But the thing is, like, you have
I
to,
don't think you were acting those out.
I was, yeah, because I know it inside out. Like, if you go to the options and you unhook the ridiculous restrictions they put
Oh
on,
god, yeah, definitely do that.
yeah, so then you can actually have both that and the skill you're talking about, Graham, on a different
the-
click.
Exploding
The
palm.
heart exploding.
Yeah, that's right. So you can have the two basic attacks on different buttons. You know,
That's really cool. I don't know if that's in the console version, but
the console, yeah, I suppose.
we have a nice feature where I don't know if you have it. You probably do, but we have a nice feature where if I get killed by somebody else on my friends list will get invaded by a nemesis monster that will attack them.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's amazing.
It's really neat. There's
think we do that.
this terrifying horn sound effect, and then this nemesis bursts from the ground and it attacks me. And of course, if it kills me, it targets someone else on my friends list, but it's now even stronger.
The thing is, I've read up on I've not actually played the console version, but I've read up on it, and a load of the features sound fucking fantastic. Like the chains idea, where you just got to chain mobs into one of them to gain a massive XP bonus at the end of the chain.
Oh, do you
That's
not have that? That's
not
really neat.
That's
Yeah, I know we
really
got
awesome
that.
in the console version. And it's kind of really interesting. I'd love to really play both of them intensively and try and discern what Blizzard think a PC gamer, how Blizzard think a PC gamer differs from a console game.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just a really interesting, like, what assumptions have they made here? Well, not assumptions, but obviously play tested this stuff.
Like, I've played the PS3 version, and I don't think it feels as nice as the PC version. Like,
It's essentially the same version, right? That you and I are playing.
Yeah, but I feel like the PC version, the combat is designed around the mouse and keyboard and your expectations for what those things actually do. When you put the controller in your hand and it's left analog stick to walk around, your expectations for how your attacks should operate is different than they would be if you were using a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
And so the delays and how long your attacks take to make and cooldowns and stuff like that feel very odd when you're expecting it, but just simply because of the controller, to be something more akin to God of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read a review of Diablo 3 on Eurogamer, which was basically of the
PlayStation.
Ultimate Evil edition. Not just any evil, the Ultimate Evil.
The last one, eh?
I'll never do another Diablo game because all of the evil is used up.
There's just none left. Our banks are empty. But the review is basically like, if you've never played Diablo 3 before, this is the version that you should get. So I got it. And I think possibly if I played the PC version, I would be feeling the same way as you. But for somebody coming at it with just no experience of how the game plays, how the game feels, on controller, it feels like it's working fine for me.
That's cool.
I remember having a conversation with Nathan Brown on Edge about Diablo briefly in the office, and he was like just playing the console version of it without like having played the PC version much, and he was kind of critiquing it along the lines of Devil May Cry or something like that, as you would without like really knowing where that game came from. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you hold it to the standards of Devil May Cry or Bayonetta or something like that?
Yeah.
It's the if you draw it on paper, it's the same kind of idea. It's a third-person action game that's all about fighting, and it's kind of also not that. It is about character building. It's about kind of it's about trial and error and testing, experimenting with your skill set in a way that Devil May Cry doesn't allow for in the same way.
The reason I played it on PS3 is that I reviewed it for Edge at the request of Nathan
Oh,
Brown,
really? Yeah.
deputy editor of Edge. Yeah.
I think I've seen Nathan tweeting recently that he's been playing a lot of Diablo, so we should get him on the podcast at some point because
Yeah, we should actually. It's
yeah,
good fun.
definitely, yeah.
Shall we do questions?
Yeah. Cool.
Let's do that.
Good.
Benjamin writes, "Hi guys, just wanted to let you know about something wonderful involving video game music.
I love these things.
There's a podcast called Song Explorer, which is all about the craft of making specific pieces of music.
I've heard about this.
One episode from a few weeks ago is about how video game music is composed and how a track from Watch Dogs works. It's an interesting 15-minute listen. Benjamin.
Oh, isn't it Song Exploder?
I think it's Song Exploder.
That's what I said. What did I...
You said Song Explorer.
Probably did, but it says Exploder here.
Okay.
You give us a URL, which is songexploder.net / a bunch of other stuff. It's episode 15, you can find it on your own. Ian writes, Dear Creighton Crow Barack Obama's, 4th attempt at getting a pun and email read out.
Got a mild chuckle. That was what you were aiming
Let's
for.
do a pun. I was going to say it.
Previous puns could have been really good, but the email could have been awful, so we didn't read it for that
Don't
reason.
worry about it. Just don't worry.
We don't know. We don't know.
It's reassuring to know, isn't it?
Today we're drinking black cherry bourbon.
I listened with interest to the discussion around moral dilemmas in games, particularly with regard to Mass Effect's awkward genocide turtle.
We had a long conversation.
I too really struggled with this. I loved the fact that in the second game, the decision doesn't have direct consequences, but is instead a really tricky moral choice you have to square with your own code and conscience. However, this changed with the third game when it has possibly universe-defining consequences with regard to getting the Krogan on side. I was caught between two stools, and they're not the obvious moral ones. I'm talking instead about the difference between what the game's immediate time frame demands of you and later consequences you will never see. You need the Krogan in the fight against the Reapers, but say that fight is won. In the future, the Krogan will surely return as a threat into the galaxy. Since you'll never see the latter happen, why not just game the issue? Make the choice that gets the Krogan to fight for you and never worry about the possible long-term consequences. It isn't what I did. I chose to roleplay as my shepherd and made the choice I thought he would make, which is actually the same I would. But my question is, do you ever game your moral choices? Perhaps aware that you won't have to deal with all the fallout? Or do you always stick steadfastly to a moral code, either your own or your character's? Thanks for reading, everybody. Ian.
That was an interesting moral choice because the argument against curing, like the moral dilemma there is, the Krogan have been intentionally infected with a disease that makes all their babies die because otherwise they're so fucking good that they'll dominate everybody, which is, I don't think terribly fair. And so it's like, well, like, oh, we can cure the genophage, we know how to do that, but do we want to do it because then the Krogan will take over the galaxy?
Oh no!
I feel like that's maybe not a sufficient cause for the course of action taken. I feel like you don't get to just biologically cripple a race because they're too good. Oh, they're just really effective. So if they wanted to kill us, they could.
Like, the Krogan genophage is one of my favourite bits about Mass Effect. Largely because it's a really... We talk about a lot about moral dilemmas that are kind of so binary as to be meaningless, like the kick the puppy, save the child moral dilemma. But to me, the Krogan genophage is interesting in that there are so many chess pieces in play, as it were, that whether or not the basic discussion is clear-cut to you, there are so many other factors that at least the decision is muddied by other people trying to talk to you about it.
I just realised we're probably going to get a load of comments from people lecturing me on the historical context of the Krogan issue and their previous war crimes, which is awesome. It's fantastic there actually is an issue in games where people can do that.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point of the whole.
In fact, one of them might be Chris.
I haven't actually finished Mass Effect 3 yet because there is a plot event that I am one mission away from that I don't want to happen. So I haven't finished it yet.
You sound like Rich McCormick,
Yeah,
who had one imperfect thing about his Mass Effect playthrough
Well, it's
and
not so much
therefore
that it's
replayed the
imperfect,
entire
it's that
game.
there's a character that I care about a great deal that I don't want to put in jeopardy.
Yeah, you are Rich McCormick. Yes, that's exactly the same scenario.
That was
Which
the same reason.
I know
Yeah.
is about... it might be the same character. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
He made a choice in Mass Effect 2 that was going to destroy his Mass Effect 3 playthrough, so he
Yeah.
went back and replayed Mass Effect 2
Yep.
in order to
I made
redo
a choice
it
in
so
Mass
that Mass Effect 3 could happen how he
A
wanted
thing
it
happened
to.
in Mass Effect 1 that has stymied my Mass Effect 3 playthrough, and I'm not fucking replaying Mass Effect 1, so that's just not happening.
Alright, you're not Rich McCormick then, because he would replay Mass
I
Effect
replayed 2 because I hadn't played it for a while, so I did this weird masochistic thing where I'm like, I'm starting again, and I played it. But so I don't know enough about the genophage to be able to comment specifically on that particular issue. I realise I sound like a politician here. I don't have.
That's what's great about it. It is. Like
I don't have all the information necessary to be able to talk about this issue. I'm sure the superiors will understand what's going on here. But it's interesting when we talk about moral decisions. I think that probably because I am a moral wimp. I probably tend to play as a steadfast moral decision most of the time, with the intention of playing differently on a replay that never happens. I think to myself, like, I'm going to play like me this time, and then in the future I'm going to do something different when that super doesn't happen. Tom posted some screens from Dead End Thrills' playthrough of Deus Ex Human Revolution recently, and that made me decide to replay Deus Ex. And the first time I played Deus Ex, I played it entirely non-lethally, because I was like, I want my Adam Jensen to be... I don't want him to have an effect on the world other than people waking up with headaches and broken ribs. I don't want to kill anybody. But thinking about it, the first time I played it, I was like, on a replay, I'll be fucking terrible. I'll go through and, play it with all my, like, elbow daggers or anything. But thinking about it, I'm probably going to play it exactly the same way as I did the first time again.
And that makes you Chris Thurston, who replays Mass Effect exactly the same way every time.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
But that's because, like, you took... there was a pleasure to the mechanical depiction of slaughter in that game. Well, of knocking people out quietly in that game that you just can't get away from. That's what you enjoy about that, right? So that's precisely what this question is addressing, is like how the mechanics of the thing have actually altered your moral choice, because you'd rather just play it in a way that's fun rather than, play it in a way that's less fun.
I think that if I like to think that if I was Adam Jensen, which I'm clearly not, I would probably live my life non-lethally, or as close to non-lethally as I can imagine. I don't think that it's as reductive as this is just the way I like to play. I think that probably some moral level is like ideal. I have a friend who tries to play all games as non-lethally as he can, up until the point where, like, he tries to push non-lethal right up until he has to be lethal, and that's an interesting approach to me.
In Deus Ex, you're sent to kill a terrorist leader, in air quotes that you can't see if you're listening.
It's lucky you said it then.
Juan Lebedev, and it's a moment where you can do it or you can not do it. But if you don't do it, Ana Navarra comes up, and she's going to do it if you don't do it. But you can kill her and still not do it. And so if you don't do it, and you kill Ana Navarra, then you can save Lebedev, but then he's still on this plane, surrounded by UNATCO troops. He's still going to be taken out, basically. So in order to deal with Ana Navarra, I knew she was coming, so before I went to the room where you talk to Lebedev, I planted a proximity grenade on the door outside. So I walk up, I talk to Lebedev, we have a whole conversation. Conversation ends, there's just a beep, beep, boom outside, and then we talk again.
Oh, hi, by the way.
He behaves as if I've just killed Ana Navarra for him, which I have, but neither of us saw it happen. And then after we have a conversation, I fire... I think I maybe use my taser on him to knock him out, and then I pick him up and I take him out of the plane, and then I fight off all the UNATCO troops who are... Actually, maybe you don't have to fight them at that point. Maybe you can still get away with it. But I'm carrying Lebedev with me, and I have to find a safe place within... what airport is it? LaGuardia. Where I can hide Lebedev's unconscious body such that when he wakes up, it's likely he won't be caught by UNATCO and can actually escape.
Man, that's really interesting, because that's not narratively or mechanically reflected at all. That's
they haven't thought of that.
Do you kind of wish... So I'm kind of thinking a little of this moment in Gunpoint, which is a game you made, right?
I think so. I can't remember exactly.
So there's this moment in Gunpoint where you're punching a dude.
I remember that one, yeah.
There's no moment I'm not punching a dude in Gunpoint, I think.
Right, and you have this load of really smug responses for punching a dude in Gunpoint that are fantastic, where you're like... It essentially comes down to, are you just punching this man for more dialogue responses?
Yeah.
And that kind of interests me in this regard of moral choices, where it's like...
I mean, it should be noted this kicks in... So the first message kicks in about 20 punches, the next message kicks in about 30, the next one's about 60 punches. The one that asks you, are you still punching me to see if there will be more messages, is about 100 punches. So the man is dead, the moral choices are...
Right, okay. To be clear, I saw this on a YouTube video, Tom. I didn't punch this man 100 times. I'm a moral person. But no, it's interesting, and to an extent, I wonder how many moral choices are committed by players. How many moral choices are committed by players with an intention of wondering whether or not the game will directly reflect what you have done.
That is one of my most difficult dilemmas often in an RPG is I want to know what happens if I do option A, but I would do option B. I'm just really curious about when it says like, one of my options is, like, go to hell. Does that mean I'm going to kill the guy? Like, am I going to get arrested? Is this going to go down a... Like,
Divinity
how much
Original Sin does a lot of
do
this
that?
really interesting stuff. So there's a moment in Divinity Original Sin that I'm thinking of where you arrive in a graveyard and you can just start digging up people's graves, including when people literally beside the graves are mourning people who have just died. And fantastically, the game design encompasses responses that you would actually expect from instances like this, where the person goes, "What the fuck are you doing? You're digging up my, like, sister's grave or something. Super don't do this."
Is that a quote?
Super, don't do this.
It's a Capcom game, right? But no, it's interesting to see moral choices that are enacted, not necessarily because you are sticking to an internal moral response, but because you feel that the game designer is going to have thought of something clever for you to do in this instance.
Yeah, the Stanley Parable is kind of like places that as well. Like you don't make conversational choices in that game, but you make directional choices based on what's being told to you all the time, isn't it? Like a choice.
It's interesting, like, to think about it from a game designer's perspective, because then the question is, should you put in choices where the only reason the player would do it is to find out what happens when they do it, and there's no moral reason why somebody would, dig up somebody's grave while their sister is still grieving over them. And so the gunpoint punching thing, that only kicks in, like I say, after you've already punched them 20 times. They die after 10 punches, so it's well past the point where you see blood seeping out of their head. You know you've done the bad thing, and from that point you're doing it for some reason. I still don't, as a designer, entirely understand why you're doing it. And so I'm asking you, why are you doing this?
Let's make it clear. That is super gross. Not from Tom's perspective, from the person playing's perspective. That is really gross.
And I think that is one of the most popular things in Gunpoint. Probably more popular than, like, the central mechanic of the game.
Because in theory it's a really great joke.
I think, but there's a certain reaction people have where they really don't expect it, and they laugh at the jokes. The jokes are not that funny in themselves, but I think there's a certain, like, vulnerability that they feel because they are doing something that they know is wrong. They're doing it for fun. They know that in this situation they would never do this. But as a player, they're like, oh, can I just keep punching this guy? Can I just keep on punching this guy forever? Is it ever going to stop me? So they're doing it for that reason. And then the game starts judging them morally, and they suddenly feel watched. It's like, shit, someone was watching me do that. Like, they're actually paying attention to me.
How many punches knock somebody out? 3?
10.
10?
Yep. 10 kills them.
So 1 punch knocks them out, 10 kills them.
Okay, right, fine. Okay.
I came to arrive at that figure by asking Twitter.
Well, like, how many punches?
The ground, how many punches should it take to murder them? Because there's always going to be 1 punch to kill them, because that's the whole point, is it's just meant to be quick, and then everything else you do after that is kind of a decision you've made.
It's a really interesting mechanic to me. This sort of direct manipulation of the players. So, I've been thinking a lot recently about... I'm good friends with one of the designers on the Stanley Parable, and I was thinking a lot about how the narrator in the Stanley Parable works. And a lot of the time he works in a very narrative sense. He doesn't necessarily work in a mechanical sense.
Is that like they're one and the same thing in the Stanley Parable? I think like the
well, yes, but at the same time, the narrator is reactive to often just like positional choices you make. Like the choices you make are just down to whether or not you hit a particular script trigger in your movement through the level. And I was wondering what a Stanley Parable-esque reactive narrator would be like in a more mechanically directed game. And I guess the solution would be something like GLaDOS. Somebody who reacts to choices.
Well, we might find out in Firewatch, because that is kind of, it's the thing where there's pre-written narrative, but it's only triggered by the player. Well, not only triggered by the player, but one of the main ways that a lot of that stuff will be triggered is by the player. And it's sort of your decision about, I'm in this location, do I want to see if Delilah has something to say about this, or do I want to say something to her about this?
I just know that me as a player, I'm going to be pressing the button to activate Delilah at every single opportunity.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that might be I'd be interesting to ask them if they have thought about that, and if so, do they fear it? Is it a bad thing if somebody just learns, oh, there might be content if I press the button, so I press the button all the fucking time to find out all the content.
I have a real problem where I I try and almost obsessively extract as much content from a game as I can.
Squeeze that juicy
It's
content
an
out.
anxious thing of like feeling like you're missing something if
Right,
you're not trying
absolutely.
every
And that
possible
totally factors
option.
into moral decisions as well. Like sometimes you do something like Fallout 3, you get the option to destroy an entire town really early on.
Yeah.
And there's loads of quests in that town.
To an extent, I feel
Part of it is
like
I haven't done the content yet.
I feel like it's about putting the player at their ease. Like, in something like a Valve game, I think they're so good at putting the player at ease. Like, hey, you don't need to worry about this. Like, we're going to tell you a story. All right, off we go. Like, a story's about to happen now. 3, 2, 1, go, let's do a story. Whereas in another sort of game, I'm more like, I have to get all the story in this place.
But like interestingly, the original idea for Portal 2 was that there'd be many, many endings that would happen throughout the entire game. So you could end the game like a halfway through if you got a certain ending. That was the
Almost
original.
like
They
the
abandoned
Stanley
it.
Parable.
Yeah.
But it was a very serious design intention that Valve had for that game, that they would actually kind of deny you content for making a decision, which they obviously moved away
It
from.
doesn't work well. I mean, it was an intention for me at gunpoint as well. It was going to be a very reactive, branching plot thing where if you screwed up this one mission for this client, even if you survived and got out of it, if you didn't save the person you were meant to save or get the data you were meant to get, they would hate you and they wouldn't give you any future missions. And then I realised, I can only make so many missions. I need you to pay them all, otherwise the game is even shorter than you're
I was
already going to
looking
complain
at
it is.
I was working on a prototype for a while where it was as though it should feel to the player as though a story similar to that of Gone Home through environmental exploration and narrative progression had been completed, whereas in fact that was one of like 15 stories that could be completed. It was this sort of intention of like, what would it feel like if you had completed a narrative game experience and thought that that was the only experience when in fact there are a whole lot of doors that could be open to you. And it's really hard to do.
I think in particular, like if people know they've missed content, they just load their old save game, or if you don't give them save games, then they'll restart from day one and just do it the whole thing again to get extra content.
One of the things you can do in Firewatch is just not respond to Delilah when she asks you questions and she makes assumptions based on that. Could you just have it? Would this solve the problem if you just like message Delilah about something you just saw and she just didn't respond because she didn't say that? Would you
She
let
lets her timer run out.
Yeah,
I'm not going to talk to Henry about this. I don't know.
Is his name Henry?
Yeah.
That's a good name. I like games that name the protagonist.
Well, he also, it really suits his fingers because
Yeah.
he
What
looks
the hell
like-
are you talking about,
choppy
Tom?
fingers.
So he's got Team Fortress 2 fingers.
Yeah,
Which
he's
is
got
like
heavy.
a big chunk.
He is the
Yeah,
heavy,
basically
yeah.
the heavy from Team Fortress 2, which just kind of suits Henry, like a big practical name.
One of the
Kind
things
of-
I like about Firewatch is that they have assembled a team that is like otherworldly. They've got Jake
Yeah,
Wynn
so-
from Double Fine, Ollie Moss.
The animator who does that hand stuff, we've linked it before, but there's a first-person Half-Life video, which is why they hired him. They saw that video of him. He just made Half-Life again, but as a movie where you can see Gordon's hands and he interacts with stuff in a really cool way. I didn't know he also did the Team Fortress 2 dance.
Oh shit,
thing.
he did that?
Oh wow!
I guess you will know what I mean.
I thought that guy got
There's a
hired
whole
by
series
Valve.
of videos of each individual Team Fortress 2 character doing an amazingly animated dance, and then at the end he puts it all together into this huge diorama thing of every single character dancing to Everybody Dance Now, and it's just spectacular. I remember writing about it for PC Gamer, and I only just recently found out that was him too.
There's a whole load of... one of the things I love about Team Fortress 2's characters is that they are innately expressive and simultaneously blank enough that people can just project a load of stuff onto them. I remember seeing a Team Fortress 2 video where the Scout raps in the voice of Eminem through a series of Scout dialogue
That fits,
choices. And that's amazing that Valve have built the tools that people can do that sort of stuff.
I remember, this is a little bit off topic, but like one of the greatest jokes in a video game was a line in Team Fortress 2 that is just very, very rare. It only comes up when you're playing the Scout and you destroyed some engineer equipment, and that's pretty rare anyway because the engineer is your nemesis as a Scout. Like, you can't survive sentries, it's horrible, and you rarely get one up on them. But if you destroy a bunch of engineer stuff, and I think it may be only if you destroy several things in a certain space of time, then one of the Scout's lines is, "I broke your stupid crap, moron!" And it's the combination of I broke it. it's stupid, it's crap, and you're a moron. In that short space of time. It was just unbearably funny to me. And I think it's partly because it was so rare, and because it was uniquely suited to the situation I was in, and it's in his voice too, which is inherently funny. And it was just like...
I'm really interested in Valve's approach to narrative in Team Fortress 2, in the sense that they've sort of said to themselves over a period of time, like, screw the idea that this is just a team-based multiplayer game. We're actually going to try and tell weird emergent stories in this thing. Which, if you think about it, is a really cool decision that they made at least some point in the past, which is everybody's going to have stories that they tell, and everybody's going to have responses to different things. And that's something that's really interesting to me.
I think that answers that moral questions.
Yes.
I would say that with Mass Effect particularly, the Paragon Renegade system was always extremely awkward. That was the mechanical manifestation of the decisions you make.
Yeah.
And that never sat well with, I think that making a decision and there being a consequence further down the line in terms of the characters that are around and the way they're behaving, that's mechanical. Like, that's a mechanical change.
There should be enough. It shouldn't be termed around like the kind of binary
there should be a
earning points.
There shouldn't be a level up thing about it.
And the worst thing was like there were certain lines you couldn't say unless you had enough Paragon score.
Yeah.
And there was also an RPG thing that you could pump points into that would multiply both your Paragon and your Renegade score. So it made you more virtuous and more rebellious at the same time.
Yeah.
It's weird. I was on a panel at Nine Worlds with Helen Gould and Meg Giant, who wrote 80 Days, and one of the questions that people asked us in the audience was how many kind of like tracking meters would theoretically make a good character? Like, it was a two-part question. It was how many...
Because they use quality-based narrative, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we talked about before.
Yeah. We call them, like, inclination meters, like different sorts of inclination meters. How many would be ideal and how many would be perfect?
How many makes a sentient being?
Right, absolutely. And the first answer we gave was like five tracking meters of different things that the character was tracking.
Ken Levine thinks you need 3.
And then the perfect was 30. 30 different things that somebody was tracking would promote a really interesting character.
So quality-based narrative would be where things are, like story things, are divided into separate meters or like disposition bars and that kind of thing.
I mean,
it's on a very crude basis. It's like, characters in Oblivion and Skyrim have a disposition towards you. But in Mass Effect, like how you deal with the Krogan genophage could be your progress along a Krogan bar.
Yeah.
But like reducing it down to being progress along a Paragon or a Renegade bar, oversimplified.
I mean, it's like how do we track? Is one of these 30 bars like character's imagination? Do we track how imaginative a character is? Do we track how religious a character is towards a specific religion? Do we track how lustful a character is or something? And once you have about 30 bars operating together, Meg and Helen and I sort of... It's like you can create a pretty crude AI system, but an AI system that doesn't rely on like movement or attack patterns or anything, but relies on like, this is a conscious choice this character is making. It was a really weird, interesting question.
A wizard writes... Dear Gardener's Question Time.
I love questions from wizards.
A quick addendum to Tom S. and Marsh's rant in episode 57 about how the completely open and modular platform of the PC is the only platform that makes sense for true wizards.
This is a podcast in which it was just me and Marsh, and we had one bottle of rum between the two of us, and there were long conversations about many things, of which I have a blurry recollection of that one.
Right. I believe it was Marsh who mentioned that PC ports of console games have only been reliably stable for the last 5 years or so, and he's right, but there's plenty of evidence to suggest that it's now going to be the other way, and PC ports are actually becoming the most stable and bug-free versions of their respective titles. The reason for this is that patching a game on PC, whether through Steam or otherwise, is completely free. Developers can sneak in little fixes here or there, or release massive updates or new content at the press of a button without further ado. Steam will even be good enough to give them storefront space in the recently updated section, drawing fresh attention to the title and boosting sales. Patching a game on console, however, is the tedious process of submitting new builds for platform owner approval, and can cost the developer thousands to roll out depending on the patch size. The cherry on top of the console shit cake is that if you release fixes as part of paid DLC, it's often free for the developer. That means it will actually cost the developer money to release free content. So if anyone's wondering why there are no free map packs for anything anymore, they know where to look. Cheers, a wizard.
Yeah, this is a really, really good point. And in fact, it's been, DICE just said that one of the reasons why they hadn't patched Battlefield 3 as quickly as they could have is because they had to go through this enormous, ridiculous, expensive process with platform holders, and it's a publicly well known fact.
Ironically, the reason it costs money is because you have to go through certification, which is supposed to prove that it doesn't have any bugs, which is the whole reason you're doing the update, is because it did have some fucking bugs.
It is true.
Phil Fish with Fez, where he released a patch for Fez that fixed a bunch of bugs, but also introduced a new bug that wasn't caught in certification, and so he refused to then fix it for another 40 grand.
And what they'll say in response to that is like, oh, well, certification doesn't prove that you have no bugs, it just proves it conforms to like Microsoft standards. Yeah. Microsoft standards are things like, you have to have a scoreboard. So fucking Braid has to have a scoreboard, and The Walking Dead has to have a scoreboard, and
a message that comes up to tell you not to turn it off while it's saving.
Yeah, exactly.
To an extent, I feel that, and I mean this is only from my personal experience, but I feel that platform holders within inverted commas next gen are to an extent recognizing the space for indie developers or upcoming developers on their platforms as being a place where, in their perspective, money is to be made, and are making the platform easier to inhabit in that perspective. So I don't know necessarily whether or not this perspective is going to hold during this inverted commas next gen era, because this next gen era is to an extent more tuned towards indie developers.
It has got much better, certainly on the PlayStation side of things, but even Microsoft on 360 with Minecraft made a special deal with Mojang so that they could update Minecraft more often.
Yeah,
than...
It's a very good point the questioner Wizard makes about, like, not only is it free to do this on PC, but on Steam, like he says, you can do what's called an update visibility round, where you say, I've updated my game, so I'm going to do a post that will appear in the slot that they have on the main Steam store page, which is one of the most visited pages on the internet for gamers, and it will appear there enough that it gets 1 million views from Steam users on my game that's been out for some time, just to tell them that I've updated it in some way. And so the choice is like, pay a bunch of money to just update your game and do nothing else.
Yeah.
Or pay no money at all to get 1 million views on the Steam store homepage.
Yeah, I don't know to what extent I'd be interested to read. This is something that I legitimately don't know. I don't know to what extent the major platform holders, by which I mean Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, are charging for updates in this particular console generation. I don't know whether or not that is something that has changed.
No,
I'd be interested to look into whether or not that's the case.
The thing is, like, that the absurdity is it's just putting distance between the developer and their own fucking game. And, developers have a right to control the experience of the people who play that game after release.
Right, because if it's broken,
that's expected.
We're gonna want to fix it.
Yeah, I mean,
unless it's broken in a really funny way, which is the
a goat simulator,
or boiling point, or something like that.
Jaguar floats through jungle at treetop level.
Yeah.
Aiden writes, "Hi gents, regarding the morality of fragging someone in Quake or WoW, I think there was something missed in your discussion regarding disrupting someone else's play session. In World of Warcraft, there is an area called Stranglethorn. Stranglethorn Vale.
That sounds like a fun place.
That many low-level characters had to run through, but many high-level characters would view as camping grounds for griefing.
It's the Rat Guild.
A high-level character could prevent you from accomplishing anything other than dying repeatedly for many hours. While this did create many stories of guilds coming to the rescue of their weaker members and turning the jungle into a battlefield, it could also ruin a lone player's session. I think the crux is opting in. In a quick deathmatch, you opt in to the fight and are prepared to die, but by creating a character on a PvP server on WoW, you're opting in to a certain amount of griefing or fighting, but there are lines and grey areas. My question... What does Tom Francis think?"
What?
Thanks, Aiden.
Who's this guy?
I'm really just asking a question then.
What do you think, Tom?
Sends off with a kiss.
Oh god. Why did you read this one?
I just thought it was an interesting point. I don't know what conversation he's responding to because I don't listen to the podcast I'm not on. So
I have been to Stranglethorn Vale. And I died a lot from the actual enemies there because it was also way above the level that I was at. So this is in World of Warcraft, and I believe it's near Booty Bay, which is one of the first big
It's a pirate-sounding place.
It's one of the first big cities that is neither Horde nor Alliance. Both factions can go there. So you're in a town, and I think you can't fight each other in the town. But then Janglethorn Vale is immediately outside, so you could fight each other there. I think, doesn't World of Warcraft actually have PvP zones and non-PvP zones? You can only get attacked if you're actually in a PvP zone.
It depends on the server. If you're on a PvP server, it might differ.
I haven't played for a long time, and I've only ever played up to level 33-ish. But I seem to recall the reason I was in Stranglethorn was because I wanted to see Stranglethorn and not because I actually had to go through there.
Is it an interesting place from a visual design perspective?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Booty Bay is one of the most beautiful places in the game. It's just this amazing
to me.
Wooden jetties and almost like tree houses but coming out of cliffs in this beautiful, obviously a bay, with lush jungle and tropical atmosphere. I agree that PvP should be opt-in. that's what I think. Does anybody else have an opinion?
The original question, actually, to go back to the podcast, because I was on that podcast, was is it? It was about whether it's more immoral to frag someone in Quake than it is to kill someone in PvP and WoW.
Oh, right.
And we basically said no because you've lost a kill and I said
opted in either case.
Or you've lost a mechanical game of skill, and is there a moral element to that? You're just playing a game and you're in a kind of combat scenario. I don't know. It sounds like sure, a poorly designed PvP area that doesn't flag what players are getting into will annoy people. But then again, it's WoW, so you don't really lose much progress if you die. You just respawn somewhere.
Yeah, your equipment gets damaged.
A little bit, yeah. It's fine. A little bit gold.
God, do you remember City of Heroes when I had XP debt? Every time you died, you would accumulate debt, and that meant all the XP you earned until you paid off that debt was null and void.
The hand of the Marcus.
Oh god,
that's a terrible idea.
It wasn't even like a free to play thing. You couldn't buy XP or anything. It was just made the game shit. And then if you died again before you paid off your debt, then you had obviously even more debt, and it was just fucking awful. Everyone knew it was awful.
I have real debt. I don't go to games to have
Yeah,
debt.
exactly. This is not only is it the shit you play games to get away from, but I don't even have debt in real life. I'm fine. And now in the game I have debt.
And that's all the time for questions we have.
You can send us questions at questions@crateandcrowbar.com, or you can tweet us at crateandcrowbar on Twitter. You can post questions on our forums at crateandcrowbar.com/forum, singular. And you can tweet us individually. I am Pentadact at PENTADACT.
I am at Not Quite Real, at NOT.
Well, you know, it's not hard.
I'm at PCG Ludo.
I am at Gonnas, Gonnas.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks.
Tom.
Have a lovely evening, or whenever you're listening.
Marsh isn't here to
We're always a little bit off of the timing, but that was something else.
Sorry.
We do okay.